Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Tatum, the crossover, the drive, the kick. Hord, you did it. At the buzzer. Beautiful setup from Tatum. Nile driving. Nice look. Leotopoulos, the man from Greece, connects. Patino with a fist pump. Looks like he's running it. Wiltshire, Simeon Wiltshire, big time! Down to 12, Poplar. Oh, should have taken it. Perkins!
Posey, deep shot. It's tipped. Oh, it turns in. Shoots it! 0.8. 0.8 showing.
Then in transition, and Arizona State has stunned this crowd and captured the lead with under 3 minutes left in the first. 8 seconds. Anderson, 6 seconds. Defended by two. Toppin right there. Makes it a 1-point game. Mason won't get it off in time, but Arizona State has got to be thrilled.
Good morning. Welcome in to Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. We're presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. DB.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing this morning?
I'm just trying to see.
We're doing all right?
No, yeah. We're good. I almost knocked myself out on the towel hook at my house.
It's not ideal.
No. It's what happens when you're in a hurry. But Zoe is not great. She has a little bit of discoloration in her eye. So, as the loving father that I am, I'm trying not to be anywhere near her. So I was moving quickly in the bathroom, trying to avert.
Just get in and out.
Kid,
I'm trying to mess with that.
And lo and behold, guy's got a funny sense of humor. He's like, yeah, I'll
Knock some sense into you.
I'll teach you to not be who I called you to be. Thunk. And if you look at it, I should send you a picture when I get home. It's like a 3-pronger.
Oh, yeah.
It's just outside, so you can go like 1 towel or 2 towels, but I'm the only one over there.
Yeah.
But right around the corner is the toilet paper rack. So I reach over, and I was coming back up. Thunk. And I was like, it's one of those where you're afraid to look at it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, fudge, man, I already got a head like a question mark. Like, I hope it doesn't swell. But outside of that, did you see I missed my turn?
I did.
Was that not vintage me?
Well, I was like, okay, I saw that, and I was like, oh, it's kind of funny. And then you're like, oh, I hit my head. I was like, are you concussed? You good?
So it was multi-pronged. I wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
And I was laughing.
Okay. What were you laughing about?
Pat, the producer.
What Pat have today? What was he fed up with today?
It was kind of irrational.
Because normally it's so hinged.
Pat was upset that older Kelsey was getting some blowback on his stance about how he felt about younger Kelsey, how the Super Bowl shook out.
Sure.
Philadelphia fans were like, wait a minute, you got to be loyal to the soil, to the organization. You're an Eagle. Like, rejoice, my brethren.
Okay.
And Jason was like,
is that how they do it over at the AME? Like, rejoice, rejoice. No?
No.
It's like a Christmas carol. No? Okay.
Soon
My bad.
and very soon, we are going.
See, I know
to
that
see
one. I know
the
that one.
King.
I know that one.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to. Yeah, that's definitely getting whacked upside the head. When you were, do you know what I thought when I was little?
What's that?
I wondered why pastors just couldn't talk normal.
What do you mean?
Like, and well, I was like, okay, how about we just say and well? But then I learned about this whole hooping thing, and not when you're on the court, like shaking folks up. And I was like, oh, that's a thing. That's
again.
I didn't learn that until I was like 9.
More specific to
you weren't going through
certain
that.
types of churches. There was not a lot of hooping, either of that kind or of the basketball kind.
So anywho,
Jason Kelsey,
like, he was getting emotional over how Travis, like how he kind of was playing and what it meant. And I still think we're still kind of overreacting to Travis.
How so? Like
Yeah.
how he played?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of going down the rabbit hole because I
You
think
watch all the cut-ups of like, oh, he's not playing very hard.
and a lot of it was Chiefs fans. Like, they're mad.
Yeah.
But I know what they're thinking.
What?
They're like, shoot, we got some rings. We got a good young team. We got a GOAT quarterback potentially. Let's save the 17 mil.
Why are we paying this guy?
It's going to be 19 if he is. It's going to be 2 if he doesn't.
Yep.
$17 million difference. I'm sure that's what they're thinking. It's like, man, what have you done for me lately?
Are you sure that's what they're thinking?
Pardon?
Are you sure that's what they're thinking?
Well, give me another one. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, so my thought was that they're sort of displacing anger about how the game played out because he's like, if you were watching him, that's a guy you can scapegoat, be like, oh, he had a bad game. Look at these plays. He's not going very hard, as opposed to just being like, hey, our offensive line got their heads beat in.
Well, everybody got their teeth kicked in.
Because it's easier to say this guy's lazy versus we have a lot of work to do.
I don't know if they were assuming lazy as much as washed.
Fine. Okay. This guy,
but
it's easier to say this guy's
he didn't help
washed.
himself out because he was like, hey, man, like, I'm not going to lie. It's not fun being not as good.
Sure.
You know? So, and that's a scary place to be as an athlete because, you know, when you're used to playing at an extremely high level, it's hard. Like,
well, it's a little dangerous too.
Yeah, and I don't know how many Antonio Gates or Jason Wittens or
guys are going to play for 16 years.
Didn't you used to wonder how Witten was getting open?
Yes. I wondered that from the time he was like a rookie.
I'm like, I'm just thinking.
He was never like physically spectacular.
And, you know, but in his defense, he was actually asked to be like a true I mean, he had to block.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah. I mean, he's more like Kittle.
So it's, which, by the way, how many years is Kittle in? Is Kittle 8 or 9?
Kittle's pretty deep. I mean, he's not young.
No spring chicane?
No spring chicanery.
Guys I don't know, they don't do that anymore. You know, it's hard to be good for a long time. And this is on the heels of me getting through basically wanting to choke you through the phone. But I understood.
What'd I do?
The longevity thing with Kareem, the sidebar conversation.
Oh, yeah.
With being good for a long time. And I think it's, number one, the years would be different football to basketball.
For sure.
But I do get the longevity thing, which is why I don't bury Emmett, right?
Yeah, because that matters.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
But it is also why I love Barry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 1,500 in year 9 is
unbelievable.
It's incredible.
I mean, basically.
Although I'm looking at Derrick Henry now and I'm like, hold my Gatorade.
I mean, in 95, it's pretty incredible, especially. Like everything's
and different. They were bad. And Detroit was bad.
Yes. And they knew he was getting the rock a ton. It's not like he had Lamar Jackson back there taking quite a bit of pressure off him, right? I think the comparison there is if Emmett is LeBron or Kareem, really, really good for a really long time, then Sanders would be Jordan, right? Shorter career, but burned super bright for basically the entire time, right? And a lot of people, rightfully so, would make the argument that Barry Sanders is better than an Emmitt Smith. But it's hard to discount the things that Emmitt Smith did.
Right.
That was my argument with Kareem because it kind of.
I didn't mean so for so long. I don't want to be dismissive of Emmitt's accomplishments, and I think I was.
For a while, yeah, I think so.
Oh, like probably, I'm going to go 2000 to 2015.
Okay.
Like, I didn't really come around on availability until probably about 10 years ago.
What changed?
Appreciation. Watching some guys that
you really liked.
Yeah, kind of go through the tail end.
Sure.
I had a really, this was some years ago. This is right kind of at the bottom of my bottom. So I would say probably 2011 or Menor came into town. And we were just talking and kind of what his body had gone through. And he'd had the torn biceps and trying to keep himself together to play. And there are a lot of guys like that. You know, Jason Peter was a little more self-inflicted, but same deal. There just were a lot of guys that were getting ready to transition to do a lot of other things.
Sure.
And the price that they paid trying to stay in it. So I'm like, Yeah, this whole availability thing, I should probably give a little more credence to.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience with LeBron. Because I would often dismiss his accomplishments when I was younger because I was a Jordan guy and then I was a Kobe guy and now I'm a Steph guy. So it was hard to like LeBron.
Yeah.
Plus his game doesn't fit my eye that well. I appreciate what he does. It's not the skill set I would choose, right? And so I would dismiss LeBron's accomplishments just kind of being like, whatever, he's this, and this. And yeah, it's easy when you're more physically gifted than everyone else and whatever else, right? But sometime in the second Cleveland run, I kind of was just like, yeah, he may not be for me, but he's unbelievable, right?
So
and
who my recent example of that is?
Who's that?
And he hasn't done it for a long time, but he does it at a high level, and he doesn't miss games.
Who's that?
I did a 180 on Josh Allen, basically overnight.
Oh, sure, yeah,
basically overnight.
No, I get that.
And it was weird. I'm not a Bills guy, and this was pre-James Cook too, so it's not like
the extra affinity.
I didn't have like a boost, right? I just watched what they asked him to do and what he was willing to do. I'm like, I don't know how long he's going to be able to do this.
Yeah,
but this is pretty incredible.
Yeah,
So then I kind of just like, and for a guy that doesn't, love is fine, but I'm just not going to fall in love overnight. I was like, I think I really love that guy.
Yeah, I probably
he's not even doesn't have anything to do with the team I like.
Yeah, you have no connection to him.
I don't like anybody in the AFC.
Yeah,
but I like the way he plays, and he's always available. Always.
I probably turned around on him in the last year and a half.
Oh, that recent.
Yeah, because it was
it
was the turnovers. He just turned the ball over so much for a while that I was like, man, I get he's really good, but kind of like you said, seeing everything that's asked of him and seeing that he's always there when most quarterbacks have a couple games here or there throughout the season where they're not available, I can really appreciate. I think I just watched him more closely, and I do think he's gotten a little better over the last couple years, but I think I just realized he's better than I thought he was. If I'm just being totally honest, I think he's just better than I thought he was.
I don't know. I certainly wouldn't say that about Emmett because I think he's a great player. I don't think he's any better than I thought he was over time.
You just started valuing some of the things he was good at.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do with a lot of people. Right?
Oh, yeah. And it's hard. It's one of the reasons why I like Kevin Garnett. I listen to a lot of his podcasts, and sometimes he's over the top. He's like Kevin Walt Kowalski Garnett.
Okay.
He's a total get off my lawn guy.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's a tough guy, and he's not a fake tough guy. So
no, he's a real tough guy.
That's what he likes.
Yeah.
And he was sitting down talking to Kenyon Martin, and Kenyon Martin is a couple sandwiches short of a picnic.
Also not a fake tough guy.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, he's about that life.
And they were just talking about laying it on the lines for these collective bargaining agreements. And they were basically admitting that part of their get off my lawn behavior is because they don't think guys play hard enough all the time on the heels of getting guaranteed money. Which is what that group through the collective bargaining agreements.
Yeah, it's what they put on the line for.
Went through.
Yeah.
Right? Because, the Thorns and the Stern, those guys weren't always
advocating for players the same way they are
we
now.
had dress codes. So there was a lot.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? Okay. I'm always a big competitive stamina guy.
Sure.
Across multiple levels. I would like to see, how do teams in the NBA, every single stinking night, a team gets blown out by 20 or 25. The other day, it was 71-29 at the half of the Bulls game.
Yep.
I'm like, you guys, knock it off.
So here's the other thing that...
So I'm a big showing up. Night guy.
So here's and I want to make this distinction because I think there is a difference. I get a little, and I think this is why I don't always vibe with Garnett, although I do agree with what you're saying, is a lot of people will say, oh, guys don't play hard. I don't think that's accurate. I don't think they play enough, right? And that there's a difference there, right? I think guys, when they're out there, play hard. And that's the thing. Oh, they don't play defense. That's a misnomer. That's just not true. Are there games where they don't play defense? Sure. Are there bad teams that don't play well? 100%. That's always been the case, no matter which era of the league you prefer. That's always been the case, right? But I do have an issue with the Stars not playing enough, right? You can't tell me that the Michael Jordans and Kobe Bryants and Kevin Garnett's of the world could play.
Are you sure you want to use Kobe?
I mean, for the most part.
Okay, I don't know what you're going to say. That guy did walk off the court on an Achilles, so
that's what I mean, though. Like, you can't tell me that those guys can play every day and be committed to playing every day in a league where the medical care wasn't as good, the training wasn't as good, the nutrition wasn't as good, and by everybody's accounts, it was harder because you could foul the crap out of people, right? That's part of the thing. It's the NBA was so much more physical. So you can't tell me it was an easier league to play in. Those guys play every night, and then we've got guys today that they need load management and whatever. Like, I just don't buy it, right? I don't buy it. I get the league is more talented top to bottom than it's been, but I don't buy that these guys can't. I think from top to bottom, like, you can make an argument about the best players, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Top to bottom, I think the league's more talented than it's ever been. I think that's true. It's certainly not less talented than it used to be. But my issue is I don't think there's any reason why these guys can't play 70 games a season.
Yeah, so, and you know where this kind of what it morphed into with the kind of the Josh Allen Love Fest thing and the availabilities. I'm going to be fascinated over the next – and I think it's going to take more than a year. So it's not just this year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what happens if it stays the same. This is on the heels of Jason and Travis Kelce,
mm-hmm.
too. And because, TK was explaining, or Travis Kelce was explaining, basically saying how many extra games they play every year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're in the Final Four every year.
Yeah.
Right. Where college football teams, I'll be curious to see how they manage the 105 playing late into the seasons year over year.
Sure.
It's going to be vastly different and another layer to competitive stamina.
So these really good teams, let's use Ohio State as an example, right?
With much smaller numbers.
Yeah.
Like, what's a down day? Like, you don't really have developmental practices anymore, or can you? You're going to have to be creative.
Not in season.
Where you're like, hey, let's take our young guys.
Mm-hmm.
No, those guys are going to be needing to get reps every day to keep everybody sharp.
Well,
so over time,
and
like I said, I don't think it's going to show up in 1 year, but I'm going to watch injuries. I'm going to watch the soft tissue stuff, smaller numbers, more extended periods of time doing it because the seasons are longer.
Yeah.
And how that wears with how guys prepare to train. It's going to be – it's like I'm sure you're not familiar with A$AP Ferg, but he sings a song called New Level.
Yeah.
I'm on a new level. Does it ring a bell? No?
No, I know the song. I don't know the artist.
They're going to have to go, I think, from strength and conditioning to how you take care of your body, to rest and recovery, to fueling your body. I am fascinated to watch how some of these teams have to practice and will practice and be willing to practice to keep up a certain level of physicality with much, much smaller numbers.
Yeah, so you're talking about, let's use an Ohio State, for example, right? Let's say they go to the college football semifinal or final 3 years in a row. You're talking about 14, 15, 16 games 3 years in a row, right? That's an extra half season, basically, if not more.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Depending on how far they go, like either a half season to a full season of extra games over 3 years. I mean, we talk about how much it impacted Nebraska to miss as many practices as they did not going to bowl games. It's sort of the flip side of that, of having so much extra wear and tear on your body over 3 or 4 years if you're continually in the college football playoff and making these little mini runs, right? And so this is actually a place where I think having a guy with NFL experience could be hugely beneficial.
Oh, good point. Just knowing how to.
Just having done it before, right? Or having at least made the mistakes before your current job.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't do it well.
I'd be curious to see what, is that going to be a guy that is a big. Well, you can't afford to really use the fall like training camp, though. I mean, I guess you could, right? Half shells. I don't know. I don't know. There's going to be some beauty in managing. Maybe you go high intensity,
shorter periods. Yeah.
But I will like to see that case study over the next 2-3 years. You know what I think is going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm calling my shot. And this may be in relation to the cap, if you will, having to go up. They're going to find that you need more bodies.
Yeah. Whether it's a practice squad, taxi squad, something.
And I'm not saying everybody needs to carry 140 or 50 or 60 like Nebraska did, but I think they'll arrive at a number being closer to like 120.
Yeah, give me like a 15-person practice squad, taxi squad, something.
I seriously think because people will be falling by the wayside.
Well, and that's, we've talked about this a little.
What do you do with your best players in high school? A lot of guys around the country. You don't feel like really going today?
That's all right. Especially if they're a guy that goes both ways.
Right? Everybody knows around the country they're see you on Friday guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think rigor is part of it.
And honestly, that's one of the things, we've talked about this before, that's one of the things that intrigues me about Christian Jones.
Yeah, that's or Breezak or any of these guys, because if you don't and they're firm to this, Coach Frank, everybody, Coach Martin was really, really good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Where we do install and there were game plans. Coach Frank was like, I think most coaches that hold your feet to the fire like this, I'm just talking about the guys that I know.
Sure, that you've worked with, yeah.
Like if Tuesday goes around and they may give you a Tuesday because that may be the final I have an idea installation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not out there able to move around and really, really go by Wednesday, it just – now I can think of one exception that came back to kind of like, ooh. And I remember Dom Rizak had a really bad toe.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of carried us for a long time during the season.
Yeah.
He's just really explosive, and he was super tough. So he didn't really know how to manage his toe, but it was ugly. I mean, it was like literally the color of my thumb.
Yeah.
And it looked like two of my thumbs. He's like, man, my toe. And we do all these things. And I think it finally caught up with him in the state championship against Gretna.
Yeah.
I mean, they were so good. It was just like probably needed.
Couldn't hide it.
Put him in better peak shape, right?
Sure.
But for the most part, if you're not ready to go, it's just too hard to play catch up.
Sure.
And you listen to some of these guys' stories. Like one of the reasons I like Mosey. Mosey liked to practice.
Mm-hmm. Barney seems to be like that.
Barney likes to practice.
Yes.
So you need. I just think that's going to show up. I really do. And you better come kind of like that when you get to college.
Yeah. I kind of want to get back into this when we come back here because I think it begs some follow-up questions about how you structure spring, how you structure the fall, and what that means for guys that are maybe above that 105 mark and what it means.
Or how many teams are we talking about? Maybe most teams are used to working with small rosters, and we just don't acknowledge it.
It's true. Maybe Nebraska's more of an outlier than we realize. That's CB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, reminding you, I know it's not snowing this morning, but there's still some slick spots out there. I was going to give DB the benefit of the doubt, thought maybe he slid past his turn, not just missed it, since he does come to the exact same place every day. But he that wasn't the case. But
I don't even have a good excuse. I just simply wasn't paying attention.
But there are some slick spots still out there, so be careful. And don't forget, Get that seatbelt fastened, make it click. It prevents injuries and saves lives. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
If I'm really telling the truth, you know what it was?
What's that?
I saw the brake lights on the back of your car. And you're always like, I'm like, this is kind of late.
Yeah, I was
He's
late.
got to set up the camera.
I was late today.
So I was momentarily distracted, but I wasn't going to put it on you. So I simply said, because it's the truth too.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention.
Sure, you got distracted
because I
by
was
something
paying attention to something
Sure,
else.
No, I get that for sure. No, I was a little late too.
I thought, because I immediately thought something must be wrong because it's freezing. So are you waiting for something? Is the lock not good?
Oh no, it was.
You just see the brake. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it was just I left at my normal time, and the traffic had not readjusted to normal traffic
you know
patterns
what? That's
yet.
how I felt yesterday. I felt like there were, if not more, or the same amount of people on the streets yesterday when I came here. I was like, I thought, you guys don't have, like, where's everybody going?
So mine was fewer yesterday, but it was more today. It was extra busy today for the time that I left. So that wasn't my favorite, wasn't ideal, but we got here, got the camera set up. We're out here, you know. I kind of wanted to return to this conversation we're having about college football in the 105 and how to structure it, right? Because we've sort of hinted around this with changing the format of spring and what spring practice might look like, and maybe you move it to the off season so it is more of a NFL style training, or to the summer so it is more of a NFL style training camp. All these things, right? And so I'm sitting here trying to figure out, okay, for a team like Nebraska that's used to operating with more bodies, and I think most teams are used to operating with more than 105.
Just not sure how many more.
But I think 120 is about the number I've seen mostly, right? So it's less of an adjustment for other people than it is for Nebraska. I also understand that having been in the NFL is kind of crucial here, like I mentioned earlier. But it does have me start to wonder, we've talked about the spring this year sort of serving, I don't want to use the term tryouts, but there's certain spots where guys are.
I do think it could be a one-off.
Sure, I do.
However, whatever terminology you use, I think this is a one-off.
Sure, because you're not going to be cutting down to the same degree every year, right? You may run in with a few extra, but it's probably not going to be. What do you say? They're still at 120 something.
6 with 7 freshmen.
Yeah. So you've got. You
32.
Still have a decent amount to cut down, right? So I do think there's going to be guys fighting for roster spots this spring. I don't think there's any way around that. My question then becomes, at what point do you decide?
Total trash, by the way.
What? The flavor today? At what point do you decide, do you have to recalibrate when it's time to move on from a guy? And is it fair to do that after just a spring?
You mean if it's expedited, or you slowing it down?
Yeah.
Do you have to
can you see enough in 15 practices to be they're going to have to, right?
Okay, so gosh, that's good. And if they invited me down to talk, this would be my talk. Mm-hmm. This is the 2-in-1. This is what you get from asking me this. Remember a couple months ago when I said, hey, there's going to be some guys that have been there for a year or two, and they think that coaches have their minds made up. Mm-hmm. So what these guys have to do is, if you really want to compete, you got to wipe the slate clean and start over. New, fresh set of eyes. You got a lot of new opinions.
A lot of new coaches.
A
lot of new eyeballs.
Don't give yourself a fighting chance. Don't box yourself in.
Sure.
Right? This is just me cheering for.
Don't be resigned to what you have been.
Right. Because I thought that was going to be key.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because I think to answer your question, why I said that is, I think these guys are going to really, really take best case scenario or myopic thinking out of it, at least early. Because when you're coaching or teaching, what the good ones do is they expect and or assume best case scenario.
This is the difference between you and me, by the way. It is. No, I'm being serious. I'm being dead serious.
So if
this is why you have a heart for education and I don't.
So if I'm I was going to say, if I'm teaching and a kid is struggling, or maybe they need to go on a contract, or they've had trouble with all other administrators. But why I think we can pull this off is because I'm going to assume best case outcome.
Sure.
Like I think you have to have a lot of that. Now, I do have a downside, right?
It burns you.
Oh, I can totally get taken advantage of.
100%.
Okay, so
and some people are smart enough to do it.
Right.
Like they know what they're doing. It's not just, oh no, this didn't work out.
Right.
They're doing it on purpose.
Right. I've created a new set of criteria too, to kind of help me.
Yeah.
Because I struggle with boundaries. But anyway, so what I think these guys will do is they will be more apt to go on the productivity eye tests versus.
You mean productivity in practice too, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. I just want to make sure because some of these guys haven't played yet.
So I would be you can't go back and get it, but I would love to see or have them walk me through how their process would change if they had the same amount of things and you're just getting Jeff Sims. Shout out KC, running back to Jeff Smith. Schmitty too, coach, basketball. Again, anyway, it's a Nebraska thing. What they would do with Sims and Harburg in the same set of circumstances.
Because they were operating under best case scenarios with Sims.
And you had time.
Yep.
So what would you do differently?
Sure.
Or do you have different emphasis now? Are you thinking to yourself, you know what? I got to be more in the results business.
Yeah.
This isn't so much about projection but the rub is going to be you like to develop.
Yeah.
So I think being able to evaluate talent is perhaps the most critical thing. It's always been important, but I think it's super paramount now.
So this is where
super paramount because you've already shown you want to recruit a certain way. Not getting a ton of ready-made guys.
This is where the competitive stamina you talk about comes into huge play here, right? Because if a guy's not ready, this is my opinion. I don't know anything. My opinion. If a guy's not ready, but he consistently shows you competitive stamina and he's making progress,
you're going to ride with that guy.
That's a guy you're going to keep.
100%.
I'm
with you.
As opposed to a guy who is maybe a see you on Friday guy.
Yeah.
Right? See you on Friday guys probably don't have a lot of places in this program. You would have to be prodigiously talented. And even then, I don't know. Because I don't know if they're willing to sacrifice everything else for the prodigiously talented guy, for one super talented guy that isn't doing things the way they need things done. Because that's, again, one of the things that destroys cultures. It's like, well, why does that guy get treated special? It's one of the things I was worried about with like Travis and Shador, right? They're getting treated differently than everybody else on that team in Colorado. Obviously, it worked out this year, but like that's the thing I would worry about. If you start treating one or two guys differently, you're going to have a real hard time establishing culture. So if you want guys, if you want to be a developmental program still, then maybe part of the production is just the competitive stamina. Even if you're not quite there yet.
You know what's funny, though?
What's that?
Listen to this. I think that might pertain more to some older guys, too.
Oh, for sure. No, I agree.
There's going to be this weird thing.
Because you're going to let young guys try and figure it out.
Because you know who it could work against?
Who?
Now, this is just a hypothetical.
Sure.
But as you're kind of explaining it. Like, what if I'm Deshaun Singleton?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of been there, done that. They kind of penciled me in.
I started for a couple years.
But you have fresh eyeballs back there.
And a lot of bodies in that room.
And you aren't the same.
Yeah.
You need competitive stamina. You need a different kind of competitive stamina than, like, let's say, a Christian Jones.
Because we know, theoretically, that Deshaun Singleton is capable at a certain level. Whatever level you think that is.
You're operating under that assumption.
Right? Because you've seen it. You've seen a pretty large sample size in real games. So you're like, okay, I know this is what's kind of out there. Does he have the competitive stamina to be anything more than that? Yeah. Because if he does,
Malcolm Hartzog.
If he does what he's always done,
J.J. Charles.
Yep.
And all three are a little different.
Because if they've done what they've always done, the sample size of their in-game production is large enough that you know what to expect.
And Charles is a guy where it's like, I know I'm capable. Don't box me in because I haven't always answered the dinner bell. Hang in there with me.
Yeah.
Deshaun might be, I need to do this longer at a higher level. Malcolm may be like, I got to lay it out there every day regardless.
Sure.
So for somebody,
it looks different to different guys.
Different. Yeah, it's different.
We'll keep getting into this coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, reminding you that you have a few hours left to get your donations in for Glow Big Red. This 24 hours of giving event supports all sorts of programs, scholarships, and activities at the University of Nebraska. It goes until noon today. It's glowbigred.unl.edu, and The offer still stands that we talked about yesterday. For donors that make a gift totaling $75 or more, up until noon today, you will get a free pair of Husker fleece mittens, same ones I showed you yesterday. They are phenomenal, super comfortable, and super warm. Get to glowbigred.unl.edu to make your donation today to support the university that we all love. DB.
Yes, sir.
So I'm thinking a lot about
Did you hear Dr. Gold the other day on the news?
Yeah, about some of the research money
and the budget.
The research money is concerning. I'm going to be honest with you, not just for Nebraska, but in general. I stay pretty tuned in because they're pretty close to curing type 1 diabetes. Like, they're pretty close. There have been people in trials that have been cured over the course of, like, I think 3 years is the longest one I've seen that they haven't been dependent on insulin anymore. And obviously that's really, really important to me. And it's, there's this running joke when people get diagnosed with diabetes that everybody for the last 50 years has been told, hey, in 5 years, we're going to have a cure. In 5 years, we're going to have a cure. I was diagnosed 31 and a half years ago yesterday. And 30 and a half years ago yesterday. And I was told we think 5 years, we're going to have a cure. We're going to have a cure. If somebody's diagnosed today, that actually might be long. That's where we're at. And cutting off research dollars at a time like this, like, that's something I am just, not just for me, but then you go to University of Nebraska, you go to UNMC, you go to UNMC, you hear about some of the really exciting developments about mRNA treatment for people with cancer. There's so many people in our lives that have been afflicted with that. My aunt, whose birthday was Sunday, passed away from cancer a little less than a year ago. I know you've had people in your life affected by that as well. It's, the research dollars are a thing we should all be able to agree on. Like, fund medical research. Knock it off.
Yeah, by the way, wishing my guys, well, I don't know. One for sure, B-Mac. I support Nick to the fullest too.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those guys. I think he may like me. I don't know, but I'm cheering for these guys as they leave.
Heading out to Arizona.
Heading out to do baseball. I know they're gonna kill it, and I want those guys. Tough circumstances, but go Nick and Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a radio show. Nick and Ben. That is Nick Hanley and Ben McLaughlin as Nebraska heads west to do baseball things. So go tear it up, fellas. That's
my soapbox for the day. Fund medical research. Help fund the University of Nebraska. And if we can't get the government to do it, let's do it ourselves. Go to glowbigred.unl.edu. You brought up something about kind of the way the coaching staff is going to have to view things as opposed to
it was not Random Mike.
As opposed to maybe how they.
I don't know why I like that guy.
He's pretty funny.
No, he really
and he's a good dude. He's genuinely a good dude.
I told you his best attribute. He just does not take himself that serious.
100%.
But he's kind of closet serious.
He is. Yeah. He's a good dude. You brought up kind of seeing things through a myopic best case scenario viewpoint versus seeing things for what they are, right? And it's actually kind of.
I think the real trick is understanding they don't have to be mutually exclusive, but you better figure out how close that gap is.
For sure, it's a fine line you got to walk, right? And it's funny because that's one of the things that made me really good scouting high school talent and evaluating talent as a college basketball coach was I could see the flashes, right? I could see the best case scenarios. I could see the myopic viewpoint. As soon as they got in the program, I had a really hard time being myopic at that point. Especially
because you had seen too much?
No, because if you came in and you didn't have the competitive stamina, I was like, oh, you're never going to get to the thing I saw consistently.
Oh, which, by the way, I got to get back to a coach.
Okay, and speaking of which, though, not a coach, but speaking of seeing flashes of things and then seeing it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm going to legislate this on the air because I have a radio show and they don't. But, like,
I always have to brace myself for these.
Our guy Jacob and Matt yesterday.
P&D Marinas?
Yeah. Yeah, don't just call him P&D. Like P. Diddy. No. They're not like him at all, as far as I know.
Okay, Kendrick.
But they're not like us. I need to go get some bootcut jeans real quick.
It's a lot coming back. That whole denim on denim thing is real.
That's really funny. But
What happened?
We're sitting there last night watching Villanova upset St. John's with your witchcraft again and being like, oh, yeah, that's going to happen.
Fudge. How close was that LSU?
Pretty close. But so I'm sitting here and I'm watching Eric Dixon hit a couple ridiculous threes in a row, right?
Yeah.
And I go, like, okay.
Were you mad at us?
No, I felt like you guys were trying to gaslight me. And I say something to effect of like, okay, because especially the second one was like an off the dribble, double clutch stupidness.
Yeah.
And I go, okay.
Similar to how he did Carolina last year.
100%. But I go, okay, this guy like must have made a deal with the devil or something to turn into what he's been. And you guys were like, well, he showed flashes.
Wait. Why do we get the voice?
Because
we all talk different.
We're going full well actually here. Well, actually, he showed flashes last year and, you know, he was blah, blah, blah. The dude is he's in his 5th year in college.
Your point was he's just
5.
He's just way better than he's ever been. I understand.
Circumstances haven't really changed. I get some of his roster has, but it's not like he transferred and it was like went from a high major school to maybe a mid major and now he's tearing it up or whatever. He's been at Villanova for 5 years.
Yeah.
His points per game jumped almost 10 points.
He's just a walking bucket.
It's
not just against Creighton, right? Because that kind of used to be the running
because
joke.
He would go off against Creighton.
Yes.
And it's not just against Carolina. Like, we've seen the flashes. I get that. But his points per game he'd never averaged more than 16 points a game in a season. Now he's leading the country in scoring, jumping almost 10 points per game. And then his 3-point field goal percentage jumped 10 percentage points despite being higher volume, greater degree of difficulty, and more off the dribble than it's ever been in his life, and having less help. You're telling me that's a normal progression of a guy's career?
Why
No.
did you save this for me?
Because the world needs to hear what I deal with sometimes. Dude, super smooth. Like, just so.
That was pretty good. Nobody can use victimhood. Like, my man L3.
As a weapon?
This dude just weaponized victimhood on this platform. No, I understood what you're saying. Now, let me tell you what my end game is. I've done this a while.
Okay.
All right? I'm good.
Could you understand how I felt that way from the conversation that was being had?
Very good at allowing other people to work their way into my argument.
All right, let's do it.
Part of what I was doing was legit. Like, I'm like, this guy's been pretty good for a year and a half.
Good.
Like, he's been really good for a year and a half. So I do agree with that. But what happened was when my pushback or my whatever was the exact same thing that drove me crazy with Logan trying to make his point about Hoiberg. 99% of what was said you can't really debate it, right?
Like, the numbers are the numbers.
Right. Hey, Dixon's made a deal with the devil.
16 to 24.
I understood
99%
of what you said.
Yeah.
But guys were hanging their hat on 2 months of or about 6 weeks of last season too, and all of this season. And I knew you were mad when you said, let's not act like I don't know. He's leading the country in scoring. I was like, oh. He does not want us in the minutia. He just wants to say, generally speaking, this dude is markedly better. Can you guys just ride with me on that?
Yes, like aggressively better.
Generally speaking, Nebraska is aggressively better the more Hoiberg plays. I don't want to get into the minutia of, well, actually,
totally fair.
How do I know if he plays 3 more minutes in these losses that the outcome would be different? That's not the point.
That's fair. Here's my point, though, right? Here's the difference. Here's the key difference.
See, you're supposed to say and, not but.
But here's the key difference. I used a general term when talking about Dixon. I said, this guy must have made a deal with the devil. He's never been like this before. This is a general term, pretty ambiguous. I know that's your favorite word. As opposed to my guy, and this is why I got in the minutia, gave me a specific number of minutes.
I even told you real time with Hoiberg, 20 is a good number.
That's fine.
It's
specific.
So, I mean, if he'd have said 18, would you have been worse or better?
I would have gotten in the minutia on 18 because he gave me a specific number.
But Logan, he's still right, though.
That's fine.
Why couldn't we just – so that's what you wanted me to say to you last night. You're right.
Yes. That's all I wanted.
That's fine.
That's all I wanted because I am right.
And by the way –
because I am right.
You're not a supernatural guy, are you?
No.
Because that episode specifically, that was a crossroads in this little Louisiana town because everything that's supernatural, right?
Sure.
They made a deal with the devil at that crossroads.
What's the guitar player?
I know what you're talking about.
It's not Josh Johnson, is it?
It's alliteration.
Jeremiah Johnson?
It's
something like that?
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, reminding you, I know it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. Doesn't mean you have to celebrate being in love with your financial institution. Might be time to break up and head over to Centris Federal Credit Union. Go to centrisfcu.org to check out all they have to offer. They've got you covered, and they've got experts to walk you through whatever it is you might be needing in your current financial situation. centrisfcu.org, federally insured by NCUA. DB.
Yes, sir.
You doing all right over there?
I'm fine.
There's some giggling during the break. You doing
good?
No,
just a lot going on. my my buddy's like, since Ravi's been spirited all week, maybe you guys can bond over both your teams getting beat by others last night in the NBA.
Why we gotta do that? Why we gotta be like that? Why we gotta be like that?
He's such a hater.
We
got beat by Utah bad after all the pub. Too much ink about the Lakers. They still got to find a way to defend.
Yeah.
They got beat by Utah.
Utah's pretty bad.
Yeah, they suck.
And they're not really.
So why didn't they give the Lakers Kessler?
They're not really trying to win that hard either.
Yeah, relax. Okay.
I do like Kessler a lot.
Me too.
Kessler's nice.
Carolina Kessler, though.
No, Auburn Kessler.
No.
He didn't do anything at Carolina.
Well, he didn't stay long enough, and he should have.
Well, I don't know. Worked out for him.
God, I can't stand you. Hey, how'd losing to Dallas feel? It's the best thing I got is a comeback.
Yeah, I mean, we're bad, so I don't really know what to.
So, by the way, I have a poll question out.
Okay.
It's unscientific. I only asked about 9 college coaches, and
Okay.
I didn't send it out until a few minutes ago.
What do we got?
And I had to do it individually because you don't send
give
coaches
people
of
numbers.
that. Yeah, and it's fine. Like they're all high guys. They're all in the profession. But I asked your question yesterday that I was going to put out on Twitter. Would you rather take a dominant offensive line or a dominant defensive line? And I said in no caveats. Don't give me the
but
just
straight up
great O line or great D line.
Yeah,
I'll be curious. Now it's only 9, so it's a rough sample size.
So, yeah, I would have preferred you put a great D line that consistently gets pressure with 4.
No,
because that was the thing.
They know
that. Okay, because that was my thing more than anything else.
They know.
Like obviously, you get, and I'm glad you actually brought that up because
they know. I
kind of created my own rabbit hole that I started diving down into yesterday because
This is on the heels of talking with Jason Cole. Was it Jason Cole?
Well, no. So this is on the heels of talking to Mitch when I asked him the question.
Oh, yeah, it was Mitch.
It
was Mitch.
Hey, are you taking anything over consistent pressure with 4? And he goes, well, I'll take a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Right.
And I'm like, I get it. I do. But what's the only thing that's shown to consistently beat a Hall of Fame quarterback? That's pressure with 4, right? And so I'm kind of going down this rabbit hole. And I'm not going to try and convince you not to take a Hall of Fame quarterback. What I am going to try and convince you is that when I have told you all year long that you shouldn't pay that next tier of guys like they're Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, that this is what I mean. Because the top, I mean, there are, let me get my list here.
So I'm not being morbid, but is it safe to say I can order the headstone and start to get the epitaph? Because
for who?
You are going to really die on this paying quarterback money hill.
Yes, I am. Not bad quarterbacks, but like next level down quarterbacks. Because let me give you the list of some of these.
We're going on almost a full year of you being bothered by this.
100%, yes. So, because you're paying guys that shouldn't get paid.
Weird for a guy that's cheering for Purdy.
Purdy's done more than Jordan Love has and hasn't got paid yet. I also don't know that Purdy's going to get 60.
He won't.
He might get 40.
Yeah.
But I'm probably not going to get 60, right? So here are some guys making 45 or more, okay? Because I think NFL GMs are putting together rosters wrong. I feel like Peter, whatever his name is, in Moneyball right now. Like, GMs don't have any idea what leads to wins in this league. They know they want to have a quarterback. Here's a who's making $60 million.
I'm not sure. Are you including bonus?
Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and he's
60 a year.
Yeah.
He's 60 a year. Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence, both at 55.
Yeah.
Tua at 53. Kyler Murray at 46. Deshaun Watson at 46. And Kirk Cousins at 45. Okay? So keep those numbers kind of in your head here.
Ooh.
Right?
Okay. So I'm not gonna pull a Drake and wear a sweater with bullet holes in it because you got me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to just mentally go through in my head and see which guys got signed early. Okay, so just run that through me again.
Early in what sense?
A year before their contract was
okay.
Up. Okay, so I know Dak wasn't, so skip him.
It was Jordan Love.
He got the fifth year.
He got signed a year
early. Okay.
I believe Lawrence did.
Yeah, he was early.
I believe Tua did.
Had a year.
I think he had a year left when he signed it.
Okay.
I don't know. Kyler didn't, did he?
Nope, that was the big deal.
Yes, that was.
He was way early. Kyler might have been.
He was like 2 years early, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
Deshaun wasn't early. That was part of the trade deal, whatever. And Cousins wasn't early.
Okay.
But you knew what Cousins was and what he was coming off of when you signed him.
So all right. I'm separating in my head as I listen to the rest of this. Panic versus not panic. Coming the year off they had and locking them up.
And so you've got two categories here.
God, that's an ugly list.
You've got two categories here. You've got guys that you paid early and guys that you paid too much knowing what they were.
This is going to be a convenient argument for you.
It really is, and it's convenient because it's true.
It's going to be convenient.
So here's other ways you could spend your money in the NFL. Okay, I have a general list, and then I got specific. Okay? Because if I wanted to go past just a dominant front four, I'm going, okay, if that's the thing that leads to wins in my mind the most in the NFL, then the obvious place to cut some salary is at quarterback because we're overpaying guys that aren't that guy and that don't lead to wins, right? A lot of those guys on the list don't lead to wins. Paying Trevor Lawrence $55 million hasn't led to jack squat for Carolina or for the Jaguars, right? So here's some things that you could buy for a lot less money. Do you know how much a top 5 to 10 edge rusher goes for in the NFL?
It's $22 million a year.
20 to 25.
Yeah,
that's the range. Do you know how much a top 3 to 10 tackle costs you? Offensive tackle costs you?
It's half of that. So
it's about 18 to 25. So it's close. A top 5 to 10 interior defensive lineman. So I averaged both guards and center spot. Top 5 to 10 defensive linemen or interior linemen.
They're 9 to 10.
10 to 15. 15 is pretty high at the top. There's a couple guys that make like 18. A top 3 to 12 running back. What does that cost you?
14.
8 to 12. Only two guys make more than $12 million.
Mack and Barkley?
Yeah. No, Barkley's at 12.
Well, he's 14.
He was 14 with bonus. His salary is 12.3 or 12.5.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
It's McCaffrey, and then I can't remember who the second one is. Actually, I've got it up.
That's
right
fine.
here. But
I get it.
So with all those guys, right? There's a lot of impactful positions there, right?
Yeah. And of the data, the highest of the high end of the aforementions are only a third.
Half to a third of the list that I gave you.
Of a quarterback salary.
Jonathan Taylor got 14.
Okay.
That's the guy that was at 14.
Okay.
So
I'm no dummy.
No, I know. Those are the guys. So that's what you can get for a hell of a lot less than a quarterback, right? So I decided, well, let's put it together. Let's put names to it. What can I actually get for the price of Dak Prescott?
I could have saved you the legwork, but I like this exercise.
How would you save me the legwork?
I would have asked you what percentage of cap space would you spend on a starting quarterback?
That's fair, but I wanted real practical names, and I wanted.
I'm listening.
And I wanted to know what it actually would cost you, because in my head,
you're pissed, so it helps.
Yeah, I was mad, so I was like, I wanted to know what it would cost me to put together some really good players, and I'll let you pick. But these are the ones I came up with based on, and I know we don't love PFF, but for offensive line, I kind of have to go off that because I don't have a good eye.
I will grant you using them as a barometer.
So this is just generally speaking, right? So there's a bunch of quarterbacks that you can get that are bridge guys or young guys that didn't pan out at their first spot for between $5 and $10 million. A bunch of them.
No, I don't believe that.
You want the list?
Anecdotally, I don't believe that. 5 to 10?
Yes.
I don't believe that.
Any quarterback that didn't work out with their first team is pretty much under $10 million.
Now, if you're going to throw me a guy like Kenny Pickett, I'm leaving.
No, I'm throwing you Justin Fields is the one that I used. He had some success in Chicago. They moved on. I went Justin Fields. He made $5 million this year.
That's fine.
Sam Darnold made 10.
But Sam Darnold isn't realistic.
I get that.
You're going to have to pay Sam Darnold 3 times that.
Now, yes. But kind of the same thing. This is 2 years later on Baker Mayfield. Anybody could add Baker Mayfield for basically nothing. Now he's making $30 million a year, right? So, but Justin Fields, you've got that entire class, and I'm not saying any of these guys are good, although Justin Fields has the best track record. You've got an entire class of guys in Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. At some point, everyone thought they were very talented. And we both agree that quarterback can be super situational. So my question is, instead of gambling on a guy who you know probably isn't it, why not gamble a lot less on a guy that still might be in a better situation? That's sort of the concept here. But Justin Fields is the example I used for $5 million. My running back, again, anybody could have had Derrick Henry for $8 million. Anybody. Then I went Joel Bitonio at one of my guards.
Yeah.
Good guard. He was at, I believe, 12. And then I went for my center, David Andrews. For my other guard, Kevin Zeitler.
You can't really do it like this, though. I get what you're trying to say. I do.
So the reason I did it like this
I
is because I picked specific guys, but there's a bunch of guys in their range. Like most of these, I didn't go and I tried to avoid rookie salaries. I tried to go to guys that were released on a second contract to see what the market was for them. Now, I know it's not perfect, but there was a bunch of guys in these salary ranges. And then I went Kevin Zeitler for my other guard. Plus, I decided I want to spend a lot of money on a rush end, on an edge rusher. And I spent $25 million on Myles Garrett. Do you know what that totals? That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, all of which are either PFF and salary top 10 at their position. How much did that?
And what are you paying your quarterback? 10?
Justin Fields was only $5 million this year. That was his salary this year.
That's kind of my. Again, I'm not gonna treat you how you treated me and Logan with Hoiberg. I understand. I don't think you can build it that way. Now, what I will, I love I like the.
Do you know how much how much those guys are though? For 6 guys.
$80 million.
66. You are paying only $6 million more for that group of guys than you are for Dak Prescott.
So do you want the cash? Do you want the cap number or cash spent for quarterbacks?
Let's go either. Let's go both.
Okay. So cap number for Dak is really closer to $89 million. Cash spent is going to be $47.7, right? You land somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. Deshaun Watson's the cap number 72. Cash spent is going to be 46. For Patrick Mahomes, cap number 66. Mm-hmm. Cash spent is going to be 50. He seems like a bargain.
Yep. He is, especially when you look at some of the other
Derek Carr, cap number 51. Cash spent 40. I've said 4 guys, and only one you'd probably say is worth the money.
Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
Yep.
The guy we talked about yesterday in depth. Went statistically, I think he's flying under the radar. A lot of people don't like him. I'm not sure why. Mm-hmm. Derek Carr.
Sure.
$51 million cap number. Actual cash, 40.
100% not worth that, but better than people think. He's better than people think, but he's not worth that. That's I don't want to pay that guy number.
Now, this one's interesting because we talked about him yesterday as a bargaining piece. Mm-hmm. Stafford's cap number is 49.6. The actual cash spent is $27 million. Mm-hmm. Are we really not going to bring Stafford back?
I don't know. Depends on if you think you can win the Super Bowl.
That roster is really good, though.
If you think you can win a Super Bowl, you bring him back. That's it. That's the discussion, right? Is if you think you can win a Super Bowl, you bring him back.
So this is different than moving pieces like Cooper Kupp and things like that. Just that, yes or no?
Yes, I think so.
I don't.
Because I think
I want to say yes. Do you know why I don't think that's the real question?
Why?
Because I think you have to feel like you can win a Super Bowl with him. I'm sure McVay feels like that.
Sure. But I mean, if you're...
So I don't think it has to be something more than that's their question.
Well, I don't think it's McVay's question. I think it's a front office question because coaches think about things differently than the front office does.
But McVay's the dude.
I get that.
I don't let's not get
If you think he's the one making the decision, that's fine.
Did you watch any of his pregame Super Bowl stuff?
Yeah.
I think I only went back and watched it because you told me.
I think so, yeah.
Somebody did.
I don't know if I did, but I don't remember.
Somebody asked
but he
me
was
about
good.
McVay, and I was like, I'm not a pregame Super Bowl guy talk. Do I need to go back? And
I caught it on like TikTok or something.
Big McVay guy. So far you giving me pushback on Prescott?
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously Watson. Carr, I'd call pushback.
Yeah.
Stafford, you pushing back?
No.
Burrow. Just don't even need to know the numbers.
Nope.
Josh Allen.
Nope. Good to go.
Geno Smith.
Pushback.
Okay, so he's coming up now too, right? Do you run it back with Geno in Seattle?
So Geno was a great signing in Seattle until they had to pay him.
So he's $44 million against the cap, but only $31 million in cash.
31's a lot. 31's a lot for Geno Smith.
What about Lamar? Do I even need to give the number?
Nope.
Okay. Obviously, you have a problem with Kyler.
At the number, I don't dislike him as a player, but at that number,
Cousins is next. I'm sure.
Huge problem. Yes.
Tua.
Yes.
All right. So I just gave you 1, 2, 3, 4.
Did you give me Trevor?
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 with Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about Tua?
Yes, I have a problem with Tua. I just don't trust it.
Okay.
And there's too many other holes on that roster to pay him that.
So the reason I pause on Tua because he's backwards in 2025.
His actual cash is higher than his cap number?
Yep.
So I didn't do cap numbers. I was doing cash.
His cash is significantly higher than his cap number.
That must be the bonus in there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So his cap number is 39.
Mm-hmm.
The cash, 51.
Okay.
Out on Tua.
Yeah, 100%.
Even with a bonus.
Yeah, because next year that's going to flip back.
So there's no reason to even go through the rest of this.
No, there might be a couple guys that are underpaid on there, but for the most part.
Because behind that is like Mayfield, Goff, even Love.
I'm okay on Goff, I think.
Hurts.
I think I'm okay on Goff. I'm okay on Hurts, obviously.
So way down at like 15, 16 is Lawrence. The cap number is only 17.
Oh, that's not bad.
The cash is more than double.
So his new contract must not have kicked in yet.
38.
Because his new contract is 55 a year.
Yeah.
So his new contract hasn't kicked in.
It's going to escalate.
Yeah. So here's my point with some of those, right? Like I gave pushback on
because we don't really break down the years.
No.
We just see
annual average value.
Yeah, we just see 250.
It's easier. It's easier to do it that way. Yeah. And that's basically how I was doing it. So I understand there's a flawed methodology there. But the point still generally stands.
Fair.
Right? My general point is there are guys you absolutely should not pay that you're paying a quarterback. Because here's the thing, and I'm not in love with this guy, but Jimmy Garoppolo took a team to the Super Bowl.
Now you can really get in the weeds with this.
You can.
Of guys that have gotten to the Super Bowl.
Yes, you can. You can really get in the weeds on it. And you know what they all have in common?
But you know what I don't understand, though?
What's
is
that?
you fought me tooth and nail last year over all these quarterbacks I gave you that could get to the Super Bowl.
Sure.
And you had so many no's. And then when I gave you the other guys.
Could win. You said could win a Super Bowl. Because the pushback was.
No.
You said no, because you said Jalen Hurts, can he win a Super Bowl? I said no. And you said he's already made it to one. And so I go, I don't think he's going back. And I was wrong on that one. That's fine. But it was win a Super Bowl. Because there are some randos that have made it. There's fewer randos that have won. But there's even fewer teams that have made it or won with a guy that is not elite that they paid like an elite guy.
When is fair, you guys? 888-638. I don't know if people are as interested in this, but I think it is interesting given this current crop of quarterbacks and what we're hearing right now.
And what the quarterback market has turned into.
Shedeur and some of these guys.
That's my big thing is the quarterback market has turned into this other thing.
I still think you start with percentage of cap space.
Fair.
That's the number one thing.
100%. Because that's the only thing that really matters.
What part of the NFL would you stop the cutoff of going back to give quarterbacks as an example? Where you're like, I think the game has changed.
Oh, that's hard. I'd have to see percentages year over year.
Well, I'll just go back to 02, 03 with Brad Johnson. Would you go back that far? Because that includes a lot in there. Then you get the
I think so.
You get the Collins. You get the
we're skipping Dilfer in 2000, but
yeah, that's true.
So let's go back to 2000.
Okay, so
You get Dilfer.
Yep.
You get
Collins.
You
get Johnson.
You get Rich Gannon, who took him a long time to get good.
You get Rex Grossman.
You get a Flacco in there.
Yep.
Before he got paid.
And he got paid a ton.
For that, right? Like, there you get, who else do you get in there? You get a Hasselbeck in there.
Oh, yeah. 2009.
You get, who else? You get Jimmy Garoppolo.
Correct.
You get a Colin Kaepernick.
You get Purdy.
Like, there's some randos in there. Now, I think Purdy's pretty good, but, like, that's to be seen still. But you had a lot of randos in there that make the Super Bowl. Not as many that win.
So where are you stopping the quarterback pay thing? At 20%? 20% or less?
I'd have to see historically what the numbers are. Like, I don't have the percentages.
I think 20% you're safe. But I don't know how doable that is unless the quarterback market kind of resets.
So that's my point, is that NFL GMs need to reset the quarterback market. That's sort of my point here. Like, you can afford to pay Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, even though Mahomes isn't even really in that category after a couple years.
You don't think there's a going rate for a franchise? There's a going rate for a franchise quarterback?
There is. The problem is we're paying non-franchise quarterbacks like franchise quarterbacks.
Okay, my point of that is the list is longer than the guys you just said.
Yes. Of the guys that are getting paid like that.
No, a franchise quarterback.
No, that's fine. Like, you want to throw Herbert in there?
I do.
That's fine. But my larger point is we are paying guys like franchise quarterbacks that are not franchise quarterbacks. And that will kill you faster than anything, especially in light of what you can buy instead, right? Give me 3 great interior offensive linemen, a great running back, a quarterback with talent that you think you can fix.
How many great quarterbacks are going to have to lose before you think general managers change the narrative that you need a franchise that's a quarterback-driven game?
So it's not about how many quarterbacks lose. It's about one franchise winning, doing it the other way. If we're going to use a Moneyball analogy, it's about one franchise winning, doing it differently. That's what it's about. I thought it might have happened. You know, it sort of happened with Seattle, but then it was just...
Then you should be cheering for Hurts.
Not really, because he got paid.
Kind of.
Not to the same extent. But what I'm cheering for
A guy like Hurts could recalibrate the market if you look at how their roster's constructed.
Maybe, but they're going to have to...
But not everybody has Howie either.
Not everybody has Howie, and you're going to have to pay a lot of those defensive guys soon.
I gave this example early in the season because I actually thought when they were healthy, their roster was better than the Eagles. And I think we asked this to Cynthia. This was some months ago.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions.
The Lions did a really good job.
It's that in their cap space. It was really good.
So I mean, obviously, the easiest thing to do is just hit on your draft picks.
They drafted like some monsters,
right? Like, what do those two teams have in common? They nailed their draft picks. Like, that's the easiest way to do it, right? But in light of you're going to miss some, the mistake is to pay a quarterback that's not that guy. That's the biggest mistake you can make, because you know what you're not going to regret? Having a great front four.
Do you know whose name I didn't even get to on that list yet?
Who?
I didn't get to Goff.
Yeah, Goff is a little trickier, but he's not quite at the top tier either. He's like 40-ish, I think.
So going into 2025, because it is going to escalate, he's 33 against the cap. You know what the real money is?
What's that?
19.
Yeah, so it goes up because he got paid.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of to my point, though. Like, this year, he's more expensive than the guys I gave.
Window's still open, Lions healthy.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
And he's less than 20% of the cap.
Less than 20% of the cap, and they were able to go pay. Like David Montgomery, they went and paid that guy more than most running backs. That team seemed to pay off. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar exterior stage. Let's get to, is it Dwan? Is that who we've got here, Shano?
That is correct.
Yeah, let's get to Dwan here. He's been waiting patiently on the Hurrdat hotline. If you want to join us, 888-638-4876. Dwan, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. I actually just wanted to make a comment.
What's
I was
up,
going
Dave?
to say earlier, but it feels like yesterday just because it's late.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
We appreciate you hanging in there.
It's all good. It's all good. No problem. You were talking about, seeing that competitive hustle, seeing that competitive energy in someone as a scout. And then if it doesn't, you don't see it when they get to the next level, it doesn't necessarily translate that they're going to be good. I had the opportunity to coach and work with John Tanji when he was in middle school. And one of the big things that we would see, he was competitive. He couldn't go left. He struggled with driving. He'd take bad shot selection. But boy, did he spend his time in the gym, and in every game he made sure they were in it because he was competing, and he competed in practice. And when it was the staff versus student game, we put 140 on those kids, but he competed.
Jeez,
so
everybody's competitive.
Yeah, I agree with you. You got to be
How are you
competitive
drilling
and
kids put
why not?
140 on them? I would,
listen,
I
man,
would
we
too. Though,
had-
hey, listen, don't get
Should have scored 160.
I'm the same way, man. You should see me in drills.
And look what we created, though.
Yeah.
Look what we created. He's unfortunately just not playing for Nebraska. So
let me ask you something. I almost feel like this is a plant call, because when JT was in high school, and I would say this on the radio, it's the same thing I said about Frankie Fiddler, and there was maybe one more guy during that time. It's why I like Garcia at Bellevue West. Every time Tanji stepped on the floor, what do I always say? He enjoyed giving it to you. Like, he is absolutely fearless, and he trains with one of the same guys that my little guy does in the offseason when he comes back. He's relentless. He's relentless. Right? He almost has like 0 days off. He just, it's just who he is.
It is 0 days off, and I think for a lot of people who don't see, what he does in the off season, he gives me a call. We come back, we shoot around and stuff in the off season. We text each other through the season, just to kind of keep each other motivated. I'm a much older guy. I'm 44, going on 45, but working out with that he doesn't care. He's like, listen, old man, I'm gonna get you back for that 140. I'm gonna break them knees. I'm gonna retire you. And he approaches every opponent like that. So, when you see that in middle school, and that's the one thing we could always say about him, is that the skill set will come. But you cannot teach competitive drive. It has to either be born in the pits of hell, fire and brimstone, or something bad's got to happen to you for you to grow that. So, I'll shut up and listen now. But you guys have a great show, and keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it, D.
Good call, Dwan. We appreciate that.
God, that's in my wheelhouse.
It's funny. He brings up John Tanji because that's a dude, because he didn't get an offer till late in terms of going D1 at Colorado State, right? And that's a dude that I watched. And
we called it a steal.
Yeah, it was. I mean, clearly that's
I just go back to this run he went on, his at holiday tournaments, when he absolutely gave it to a rope. And it was this classic game, and Tanji just stayed on the gas. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm in love.
That's a dude that I remember going to scout, and I remember thinking, God, I wish this guy was like 15% worse, so I would have a shot at him.
There were a lot of guys that came out there, and they didn't all turn out to be like stars. But like Max Polk was like that. Yeah. Wrightsell was like that.
Selly or Trelly.
There were Fiddler was like that. Chucky was. That was actually the one thing I wasn't sure Hunt had.
Oh, kind of that killer. Yeah.
And apparently it's in there.
Yeah, we saw it last night. Somebody got put on a poster, maybe put in a coffin.
But that's the code for doesn't need a babysitter. That's the number one thing. And guys ask, hey, how can we create that environment, or how can we get that? I do think it's a skill. I think it's one you have to work at. And I'm still not sure where I come out on either you have it or you don't.
Like how much you can develop it?
Because sometimes it's in there or it's kind of dormant, and it just needs a little water.
Well, let's talk to somebody who's played at a high level and continues to play at a high level for your Omaha Supernovas, Kaitlyn Hord, former Husker and current PVF All-Star. Kaitlyn, how are you this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. So are you enjoying the ride, or is it just like, holy smokes, I'm familiar with the love in this state. This is just what I'm accustomed to.
I'm definitely enjoying the best of both worlds, honestly. Like, I'm so glad to be back in Nebraska. They treat their athletes so well here. So yeah, I'm just having the best time ever right now.
That's awesome.
So Kaitlyn, I'm kind of curious, right? 'Cause you only spent 1 year here in college, obviously enough to get kind of familiar with the state and its love for volleyball. How much of coming to Omaha from Columbus last year had to do with, hey, you got a kind of sense of familiarity with the place and the people versus, hey, nobody in the country cares about volleyball more than Nebraska?
It kind of had everything to do with it. I just kind of missed that atmosphere that I was so familiar with when I did play at Nebraska. So I knew kind of what I was getting into when I would get to switch over to be a Supernova. So definitely playing at Nebraska had a huge factor with that.
We talked to Coach Bird a lot, and one of the cool things about talking to her is how she enjoys trying to make the puzzle pieces fit. It's such a talented squad, and obviously coming off a championship, when you join them, it's like, okay, I have to immediately know my role. I have to kind of see how I fit in. I have to gauge the kind of the culture I'm stepping into. More natural than we think it is, or a little more difficult than we assume?
I think, honestly, this season has been an extremely seamless, natural fit with everybody just because we all have really great personalities off the court that mesh well together, and so that's been translating on the court. Yes, we've had a few bumps in the road here and there, but because we just have undeniable trust in one another and our ability to play volleyball, that's really helped us up our game over the past couple of weeks. So it's been such a great transition moving over to the Supernovas for sure.
How much does it help, Kaitlyn, that you weren't the only new player coming on to a championship squad, right? It's a largely new roster, just a couple of carryovers. So you certainly weren't alone in having to sort of make that transition into a new position.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new pieces to this team this year. And I think another thing that's helped is, like, in the past, we've all crossed paths with each other at least once or twice. Yeah. So we're all very familiar with each other. And so I think that former connection has definitely helped out this time around. But the two returning players have definitely been so awesome in showing us the ropes and continuing the culture that they had last year that was obviously so successful.
So I'm glad you brought that up because we talk a lot with basketball and AAU how the guys and gals get to know each other over the course of their high school careers, especially.
Even more so in volleyball.
Like how I don't know that people appreciate that in volleyball to the same extent. Like, how well do you get to know some of these people that you never actually played with?
For a long time, too, right? I mean, you guys are going back to, like, youth.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You guys are, like, going back to, like, youth, right? It's 6th, 7th, 8th. I mean, it's been a while.
Yeah, I mean, like, especially across the net, there's been people that I played with when I was 14 and 15 years old. So it's just amazing to see, like, the level that we're at now. It was really unimaginable, like, when you're that age, imagining that you could be here now playing pro volleyball with your friends still. It's such an amazing experience. I'm very thankful to be in the position that I am for sure.
So, you know, I know that you knew coming into this how great Nebraska fans were for the sport of volleyball. Is there any part of you that's still a little stunned that you're getting 12, 13,000 a night every time you suit up at CHI?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I know, just like you said, Nebraska loves their volleyball, so I know that they're going to come out and support. But yeah, it's insane because, wow. I mean, they top themselves every time, it feels like. I mean, even if there's weather, if there's any sort of thing, we're like, oh, maybe we're not going to get that many fans this time. Nope, they still show up and show out, that's for sure.
Kaitlyn, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on being named an All-Star, and hopefully we will see you on Sunday down at CHI.
See you Sunday. Thank you so much.
That's Kaitlyn Hord, Omaha Supernovas, PVF All-Star, former Husker. We'll be back with Brian Edwards, our Vegas Insider.
be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, Vegas insider, senior handicapper, and fan of the cold Budweiser bottles, Brian Edwards.
It's got to be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Brian Edwards.
I don't really love it.
Brian Edwards.
The way they're using the cream cheese to butter the bagel.
Brian Edwards.
I'm going with the cowgirl.
Here is Brian Edwards.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by our Vegas insider from Major Wager, Brian Edwards. What's going on, B?
Good morning, fellas. What's happening?
B, at what point were you nervous? You're like, this goddamn over.
It was it was definitely a sweat. I was nervous until that touchdown with like whatever it was, 240, 250 left.
I'll say you're sitting there.
It sailed.
You're sitting there at 40-6, and you're not feeling good, right? Like you're pretty mad.
But weren't there like 8 minutes to go?
There's, I think 7.
Wait. When the game actually went over? No, it was only like 250.
No,
left.
he said when it was 40-6, and I was like 40-6 with 7 and some change. Are you? Right. You're like
you probably don't feel great.
I mean, I felt okay with 8 minutes left, but with like 4 or 5 minutes left, I didn't feel very good. 8 minutes, I was all right, but 4 or 5 minutes, I was like, all right, now come on.
So was it all wrapped, or that was kind of the balance? That would buoy you.
Yeah. The over was my big bet. Now, I had my biggest prop was Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown, which I got early, and I got the rushing yards prop over. But I mean, I was still going to be a big loser for the day if the game went under.
Yeah, I mean, so you took you got it at 42.5 yards on Jalen Hurts?
I think one book I had 38.5 and another I had 40.5.
And then I liked the rushing attempts at 8.5, and he sailed that one too with 11. So if you were on some Jalen Hurts props, his touchdown passing over went. He was at 1.5. His anytime touchdown went. Like it was a good day to bet on Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and I didn't have any of his passing props, but I had not only did I have the anytime touchdown, I had the anytime touchdown specific to the first half, which my account only gave me plus 175, but a lot of the Vegas books had plus 200 or plus 220, and I was recommending that in my pick right up on Vegas Insider.
Well, let me ask you something. Were you more surprised at Witt? Was it give me the one of three things. Was it the Chiefs' game plan, the level of dominance by Philly's D line, or the fact that Mahomes played so poorly?
All three, but especially the last two. Mahomes poorly and the level of dominance was the most surprising.
I think the game plan is getting overlooked. I think it was pretty poor.
Yeah, no, it was poor. And I mean, they gave up on being able to protect the passer. I mean, they're running the ball in like 2nd and 12s in the first half. And I mean, they just kind of just knew they couldn't protect. And then he didn't make adjustments, like in terms of,
they didn't go to quick
leaving an extra blocker in, or I'm sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Well, I said, they didn't leave an extra blocker in. They didn't go to quick game until like the second to last drive of the entire game when it was 40-6. Like it was very strange that they didn't try and mitigate the pass rush more than they did.
Yeah. The whole theory, which I supported, I mean, again, the over was my big play. Well, I wasn't trying to make some big argument for Kansas City, but I did say that quarterback and head coaching advantage. Well, the head coaching advantage didn't work out so well.
No, for sure. And so I guess if I saw that game where the Eagles lost, I thought it might be one of those like Tom Brady losses where he's got like 450 yards and 3 touchdowns and they just can't stop. Saquon Barkley rips off a couple 70-yarders or whatever, and they just couldn't keep up. I did not see the Patrick Mahomes playing poorly. I do think is a pretty big shocker.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's twice. Now, it was his O-line not helping him much, but the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, he was bad as well. Now, granted, he didn't have a whole lot of help from his O-line, but so that I'm not a big legacy guy, but for those wanting to anoint him over Brady, let's hit the brakes on that a little bit.
I can't believe how that was everybody's big takeaway, B. And I found myself coming to Mahomes' defense because that's not his fault, right? It was his own greatness he was being measured by, and it was still too soon. Like we did that to him.
Right. The narrative wasn't his fault.
I thought it was pretty. Like he's getting killed, and I was like, oh gosh, now I'm gonna have to be a Mahomes apologist and defend him. But I like him though.
Yeah, me too.
I like him. I like him a lot.
We built him up to
just to tear him down. So
I guess being honest, for the whole 2 weeks of the Super Bowl, I would ask out loud because I wanted us to check ourselves. I kept saying, Brady's only been retired for 2 years. What huge NFL change or transition happened where we just discount the accolades and fast forward to Mahomes being his own guy? Like it was unfair from the get-go.
Yeah, for sure.
So, B, as we kind of transition out of football, we are squarely in college basketball country now, in terms of what games we're looking at and everything like that. One, I kind of want to start with the look ahead that you're doing with Bama and Auburn, one of the most marquee matches of the season. Ken Palm's got this at -2. We don't have a real line yet. What do you like in this one?
I like Alabama. My line is Bama -4. I will love Alabama at -3 or fewer. Now, Auburn's only lost once on the road, but they've had a lot of non-covering nail biters. I mean, barely got out of South Carolina and Georgia and Texas with wins in games that went to the wire. And first off, I think that Alabama's, you can make the argument Auburn is the best team in the country, the most consistent, survived without Broom for a couple of weeks, no problems, in the SEC, the toughest conference in the nation. But I think when Alabama has its A game, I don't think anybody else's A game can beat Alabama's A game. And I just give Alabama the advantage being at home. Now, Ken Palm's projections are usually, within a point or two of the opener, but then the market will determine things. So I don't know that it'll open Auburn -2. I tend to think it'll be Pick'em or Alabama -1. But again, Alabama -3 or fewer, I will be on them Saturday. And really nothing, I'm not splitting the atom here. I just give Alabama the advantage being at home.
Let me ask you something, because you said something that is very interesting, and I want to talk about a school that's near and dear to your heart. For as long as I started out first in the off season, it was Illinois. I'm like, hey, pay attention to Illinois. This team is dangerous. When I like their roster when they're playing well. I still like Illinois. They're never healthy, and I still have to overcome Underwood a little bit. But the team the last 3 or 4 weeks, actually since they beat Carolina, which apparently everybody does now, so this is a weird line of demarcation. Man, I think you got to take a flyer on Florida. I think they're better than almost anyone thinks they are because they have yet to peak. And those guards are long, they can score, and they don't panic. I think Florida, when they're playing well, is more than a handful, maybe more than Auburn even.
Yeah, I got 35-1 on Florida in like mid-December. I got 35-1 in mid-December. Now, if they weren't my team, I probably wouldn't have. The futures I got Alabama at 20-1, like 4 months before the season, like 3 minutes after Cliff Amore committed the Rutgers transfer, who hasn't been nearly as big a factor as I thought. But I have, and it's a waste of money. I had Tennessee at 17-1. I bought that when they were undefeated in like late December. I got Missouri at 80-1 a week or two ago. And then, so Alabama 20-1, Missouri 80-1, Florida 35-1, and the Vols 17-1. Those are my future tickets that I have. And look, yeah, and
as long as Tennessee's not playing Kentucky, you got a chance,
right? Yeah. But what you said, I became a much bigger believer in the Gators the last 2 games. I mean, so we were without Elijah Martin both games, and then Alex Condon, who ESPN's new his new ESPN Jonathan Givenoy or whatever, his new mock draft yesterday had Alex Condon going in the first round. He does his ankle first 30 seconds of the game. So we're down 2 starters at Mississippi State, and Thomas Houck steps up and has like almost a triple double. He had, I think it was 16 points, 9 boards, 8 assists, and then like 2 or 3 steals and 2 blocks. And so with Martin out, Klofsar, the European guy, the freshman, comes in and he makes 3 of 3 threes at Auburn and makes 2 key threes against Vandy. So I'm almost think these injuries are a blessing in disguise because Klofsar, the European guard, is now all of a sudden getting minutes and showing he can play. And so, I've become a bigger believer in Florida the last 2 games.
You have fantastic depth. You can play 4 in the backcourt. You're long. They're pretty good, and they're battle. I mean, just the conference, man. They're battle tested.
Yeah. Now, Condon, the X-rays were negative, but it's a low ankle sprain. I mean, we need him back by March. I mean, he can have 2 weeks, but we need Condon back if we're going to win 6 games in March, and I think he will be back. I'm hoping it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks, kind of like Broom was when he did his ankle.
B, from the NBA all the way down to the mid-majors, you're feeling a bunch of overs today.
Yeah, so I'm going to go Jazz Clippers over 225. The over's hitting 3 straight for the Clippers, 242, 240, and 231. And it's on a 6-1 run. And the last 2 Clippers Jazz games, 240 and 251, and the over's 5-0 for Utah. Their last 5 combined scores 250, 245, 240, 262, and 259. I have no idea why this total is so low. And then in college, let's get us a Summit League over near or close to you guys. Omaha and South Dakota State over 152.5. South Dakota State has had 155 combined or more in 9 of its last 12. And when these teams met on January 11th, 87-80 for 167 combined. And the over is on a 9-3 run for Omaha in its last 12. And one of the unders had 157 combined, which, would have been an over tonight. And in 5 of their last 6, Omaha's had 159, 157, 178, 160, and 167. Full disclosure, I haven't watched Omaha play this year, but studying the numbers, this looks like an over.
Hey, death taxes and Summit League overs. That's what we love.
There we go.
We will talk to you later. We appreciate it always.
Thanks, guys. See you.
Brian Edwards, Major Wager. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next with Michael Bruntz.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by our dear friend, Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. What's going on, Bruntsy? Michael, you there?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I'm going to blame that one on Shane for not podding you up in time.
Yeah.
The music stopped, and there you were. Like a surprise party. Hey, let's go.
It's like musical chairs.
Time out.
What's a surprise party, Bruntz?
No, it was just I was vibing to the music, and then all of a sudden Ravi was there.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Fair enough. I forgot this morning, Bruntz, I was actually going to be talking to you in an hour, so I feel like we're texting for no reason. We could have just saved this for the segment.
I wanted to say everything I needed to say now. Like I just want to get it out of the way. I forget things.
All right, so just read the transcripts then. No, I'm not.
Well, we're basically talking about your team. We're talking about the Red Sox.
Oh, about Bregman?
Yeah, well,
I asked him if he I said quietly, I like, same thing I told you off air when I got here. I'm like, man, I kind of like what the Red Sox are doing. And Bruntz, go ahead. Tell your buddy, Bruntz, what you said about what were your thoughts?
Well, you're giving Josh Donaldson money to Alex Bregman, but no, I think it's I was being flippant because I was in the car, and everybody in Lincoln's driving like idiots today.
Oh.
And
imagine my surprise.
But, yeah, well, idiot-er. But no, it's a lot of money. I know there's opt-outs, but that's just that's a lot of money attached to Alex Bregman's name is all. That you have to understand too that I have followed a team for years where that's the whole payroll. So my radar's a little off, but I digress. It's an interesting move. Like if it's less of a Red Sox move because it actually like makes a little bit of financial sense when you get into the actual contract itself and get past just the initial dollar value.
Yeah, the opt-out years. It's kind of on an escalator.
Played second base, right?
I don't know. I think
I would DH. I would DH.
I think you move Devers to DH. You let Bregman play third, and then either you've got a couple middle infielders coming up through the minor league system that might be ready. Otherwise, you kind of just figure it out at second base. But I think they're going to DH Devers.
That's what
I think they just want to try and keep him healthy. He's been banged up a little bit over the last couple of years.
Got it. Yeah, no, I saw a little chatter late last night that there was potential he played second base, which would be interesting because you'd be blocking some guys that are going to be pretty darn good really quickly. So I thought that was interesting.
I think they want to get Mayer up here as soon as they can.
And you got Buehler on the cheap because I think if he's healthy, he's going to be.
That's a good flyer. That's a really good flyer.
He's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And maybe Trevor Story will play baseball this year. I don't know.
Hard pressed.
You would take that.
I said maybe.
Sure. We can all dream.
Well,
he can play long enough to make sure that Mayer's clock doesn't start until next year.
Yeah.
I still hate how baseball guys do that.
I do too.
Trying to hustle guys out of their clock. Like at some point we got to get past that.
I need you. Yeah, I need you to be a little more Teddy KGB and just be like, pay that man his money. You know.
Yeah, I mean. Wow. I mean, baseball is just notorious for doing that. Well, we're going to wait so the clock doesn't start, and you're going to end up getting these crazy deals anyway. You're just prolonging the inevitable, and I mean, I guess you make arbitration work if it ever has to go there, but just we're talking about 2 months. You know what I mean?
Right. No, it frustrates me when they do that. I mean, I think also. I mean, you also have the other way where you've got, I don't know if it's a trend, but I mean, you've got teams at least more willing to do air quotes team-friendly deals now for younger guys than what they used to be. So I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, that frustrates me when it's like, okay, the guy is obviously, he needs to be in the majors, and we're just farting around in AAA waiting for the clock to run out. Like, what are we doing here?
Nobody wants to be farting around in AAA. Although
No,
I am gonna push back on this Trevor Story narrative that he never plays a little bit, because he played 163 games for Boston since he signed there 3 years ago.
That's efficiency, I guess. He's efficient.
He's played a whole season for Boston. It just took him 3 years to do it.
St. Louis Jordan asked a good question, guys. What are they going to do with Yoshida if you DH?
I don't know.
That's a good question. All right, Jordan. Chalk one up for you for a second. Let me think about it.
I'll have to consider.
Hey, Bruntz, we got a chance to talk to Coach Bolt
Tuesday?
2 days ago. And it was interesting because right after that, they kind of released the rotation, and it was a pretty sweet graphic. And one thing that caught my eye right away is they've got some balance that maybe some other teams don't have, to be able to go not only righty lefty, but with the mix of power and finesse too. Like, that's not a good group to start with when Brockett's at the back end of your rotation.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting too, because they, especially later in the weekend, I mean, you've got Walsh, who the velocity is up, but I mean, he's still going to be stretched to probably touch 90 with any kind of regularity. Brockett throws harder, I think, than he probably gets credit for. But I mean, there's a realistic chance that you could have, like a Carson Yassa coming in behind Will Walsh. So you've got Walsh that's kind of not a soft throwing lefty. It may be a little crafty. And then you've got a guy that's potentially a guy that's 6'7", 235 with a mid-90s fastball coming in behind him. So you can kind of mix and match that way as well, where you kind of get settled in against the guy, and then you're giving them a completely different look. And, they've got a few of those guys in the bullpen this year that just throw hard. And I think that's something that they didn't maybe have as much last year. And so they've got a good mix of guys. I mean, I always hesitate to say too much about, how great the pitching depth is, because it's, better chance than not that it's going to look completely different in about 3 weeks. But on paper right now, I mean, they've got a pretty good mix of arms. It seems like they've got more depth. And I don't think you schedule the way that Nebraska has this year if you don't have the pitching to be able to hang in for a 3-game series or a 3-game weekend, with some of these opponents that Nebraska is going to be facing. I mean, I just, that's not a good recipe for success. So I think that reflects a little bit of confidence over there that they've got enough high quality arms to be pretty effective.
So I'm glad you brought up the schedule, Bruntz, because DB and I were talking about this yesterday, where obviously you don't really get a ramp up period with this Nebraska team. You kind of hit the ground running in Arizona. And it's like that for a lot of teams that don't play in great baseball conferences, where they really have to load up on the non-con. Like, how would you feel if you were Will Bolt about being able to get your guys ready basically from the jump, especially in a cold weather state, as opposed to some of these other teams that sort of use the first few weeks almost as an extended spring training?
Yeah, I mean, he's in control of the schedule. So, the thing that's a little bit that you kind of have to do, I mean, if you're having conversations about hosting and, being a team that's, set up for an at-large type bid, you have to schedule aggressively and you have to win some of those games. It's the schedule is even tougher this year, though. I mean, the Big Ten with the travel and everything, I haven't really dug into this to see if it's kind of across the conference, but it's, the conference kind of took advantage of Nebraska's spring break. Mm-hmm. And you basically have like a true 2-week West Coast swing that they're making in the middle of March. So
the one that starts with UCLA?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's UCLA, Pepperdine, and who's that? Oh, SC, right? Right after that.
Yeah. So you're basically on the road from, the previous Thursday to the following Monday morning, and then you come back and you got a midweek at K-State, and then, oh, by the way, you've got Oregon State coming in for 3 games at the end of that stretch too. It's a really tough schedule, and it's going to be a challenge. I don't think that you would probably have set it up the way that Nebraska did if you didn't have a veteran team coming back. I think that's a big consideration for the way that they did things. And I don't know. I mean, I think when you do have a veteran team that's kind of been through it a little bit more, I think that, when you start in January, guys have a little bit more understanding of how you have to ramp up and kind of what it takes to be clicking at the start of the season. It's obviously tough, being a team in the North, but they were able to get outside for about a week or so with that new turf practice field they've got. And, we'll see how it goes. But I do think, with the way that this team is and as veteran of a team as it is, I think you can kind of expect a little bit more competitive baseball right out of the gates than maybe you would otherwise.
It's interesting, Bruntz, because we were talking about, I think it was last week with you, maybe even the week before last, like how patient we'll be without jumping to conclusions, because inevitably, like, the season will play out and Nebraska will probably be pretty okay, but we'll hand-wring a little bit about midweek games, right? They've got Omaha and I think SDSU and I think Wichita State's in there as a midweeker in February, in March. It's not as easy as the low-hanging fruit of, well, they just don't care about midweek games, because clearly they do. The other low-hanging fruit answer is it's depth in pitching for midweek games.
Yeah.
What is it for you?
On the midweek stuff?
Yeah.
It's I think part of it is, it's 2 things, I think. I think part of it is pitching depth. I don't think they've had – I think when you don't have your Sunday spot solidified, and that's kind of been one that's bounced around a little bit for them the last couple of years.
Yep.
When you don't have that kind of nailed down, that kind of bleeds into the midweeks too, because you kind of have to start tinkering a little bit. And you're like, okay, who's our guy on Sunday? Who's our midweek guy? And I think they've got a bigger pool of potential starters this year, which helps the midweek stuff. I think it also helps when you have guys in the bullpen who you feel a little bit more comfortable being able to go in and pitch multiple innings. And I think sometimes, over the last couple of years, if you have to kind of bucket brigade it a little bit on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, it's been a little bit more difficult to do that because you haven't had just multi-inning guys in the bullpen. It's been a lot of, 1 inning and just kind of hope that you can keep passing it down the line. So I think that's a piece of it. And the other thing about it is too, Nebraska had a decent lineup last year. The offense, was really clicking by the end of the year. But sometimes in those midweeks, you just need to go out and just win the game with your offense. And they also didn't do that enough the past couple of years on those midweeks. It's a lot of 4-3 games, 5-2, stuff like that, where they're really tight. And if you can get a little bit more out of your offense in those situations, you don't have to be quite as fine with what you're doing on the mound on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And it's going to be. You mentioned some of the midweeks that they're facing or that they've scheduled. That it's the first week they've got Omaha and South Dakota State, and then beyond that, it's like Wichita State and then a bunch of Big 12 teams. It's like there's not much. There's not much, in that schedule where you just kind of are able to take a deep breath against a team that you should probably run over.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. All right, Bruntz, I'm going to ask you kind of a strange question here, so stick with me. Which do you think would lead more directly to wins for their respective teams? If Nebraska baseball had just lights out weekend starters, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm giving you all 3, or Nebraska football had a dominant 4-man pass rush on the defensive line? I know it's super like an apple to oranges, but I'm curious. We've been talking about the 4-man rush for like all week.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think a dominant 4-man pass rush probably looks a little bit different from what they've had consistently. I mean, I think they were somewhat good. Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker kind of make that picture look a little bit better. But I think if I would give more of that to the football team. I mean, baseball wise, they've actually had decent weekend pitching the last couple of years.
That would be my.
So, Bruntz,
counselor, let me start with
the reason I ask is so I started with the question to Mitch yesterday whether or not being able to consistently get pressure with 4 is the most valuable thing in football. And what I wanted to ask was if it was the most valuable thing across sports. If there was one single thing that got you more wins than being able to consistently get pressure with 4. And so we talked about, okay, what about elite 3-point shooting in basketball? Or I said, yeah, a goalie on a heater in hockey. And then as we're talking now, I'm thinking, okay, what about like a really good frontline starting rotation? And so I'm trying to figure out, because I can't really come up with a thing that I think is more valuable than 4-man rush and a consistent 4-man rush in football.
Yeah. I don't know. Does dominant quarterback play get you?
So that was Mitch's answer. That was Mitch's answer.
That was Mitch's answer.
Okay.
I still would take D-line.
Of your scenario, I think for the 4-man rush, I think is probably the direction I would go. I mean, I think you've seen, even at Nebraska, I mean, when they've been not good up front or gotten pushed around versus, I mean, even last year or the year before that, they were decent up front. I mean, you can see the difference there. And I wouldn't say Nebraska was, even in the ballpark of elite last year. They were good, but go back to that Ohio State game. They were good, really good up front. And I mean, you were right in that game, right down to the last possession. So I'll go along with your 4-man front. I think quarterback play might also be up there for me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
So DB asked the question yesterday, would you rather have dominant offensive line or dominant defensive line if you have to choose one?
Nebraska won in the 80s with O-line. But when it came down to nut cutting time in bowl games, it was always somebody else's D-line that.
Well, and then look at the D-lines on the team that won the national titles, right?
Yeah, but also
offensive lines were great too.
O-line got all the runs.
So Nebraska wasn't really picking and choosing. They kind of had both, right? But
I would say defense. I would rather have it on defense. I would take elite defensive line play and average offensive line play rather than the other way around. Like if you're wanting to like truly win titles.
Bruntz, I'm going to get to basketball here in a second, but let me get one more baseball in deal, because just listening to this conversation, I was going to ask you earlier before Ravi's either or, you still need guys like Broderick and Christo, who we haven't talked about, who I don't think are going to always be midweek options because they're going to need to be so good on maybe the back end of closing games out or whatever you want to do with Wordley or some guys like that, where even good starting pitchers these days in baseball they need stoppers at the end of games now. It's almost critical.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's always been true. I mean, like, in thinking back, since Nebraska's been in the Big Ten, I mean, their best teams, they've had guys that are like
Schwellenbach comes in and closes the door, right, or something like that.
Right, and sometimes it's not even a closer. Like Zach Hirsch was really good in certain spots of coming in, and if you can have a guy come in and give you like 2 or 3 good innings of relief, that's a really valuable thing. And I think Nebraska has this year at least a couple guys that I would put in that category. I mean, Worthley certainly is that. I mean, he might even be a multi-time a weekend guy. I think that was the goal with him. Christo certainly. Broderick's going to be just the 9th inning guy. I mean, he's got the kind of stuff where maybe he could be a multi-inning guy too. But in college baseball, I mean, when you get into Saturdays and Sundays, you need those kinds of guys that, if your starter can go 4 or 5 on Sunday, how do you kind of get it over the finish line? And if you have somebody like that, that's huge. So that's always, I think, kind of an overlooked piece of college baseball is it's the depth. And, I wouldn't anticipate like Cristo being, like you said, a Tuesday starter. I think they've got other guys that can maybe handle that role, but consistent bullpen guys that can come in tough spots and get you outs. That's gold.
We've seen Drew Burr, right? Like, we know what he does for Indiana. You're gonna see one in Maddox from Oregon. Like, these guys, I don't know. Conference is gonna be, I think, maybe better than we're giving it credit for. Let me get to tonight, Bruntz, because in another referendum game, it seems like they all are, right? Every Nebraska basketball game. Where do you put Maryland, given what's on the slate here and it being at home tonight?
It's another big one. I mean,
how many weeks have I asked you this in a row? 3?
Yeah, I think you just probably assume I'm going to say it's important.
It's a pretty big one.
We're always in agreement. It's like, how does this keep happening?
They're all pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, it's what a win tonight does is it releases the pressure valve a little bit on what's coming down the road. I mean, it's the road schedule gets a little bit more manageable towards the end here, and you get one like this tonight at home, and I think you really kind of start feeling good about things, and it would be, I think, a big confidence win too, just kind of given the challenges of whatever Burke's situation is going to be, and this is a game where you're going to have to kind of dig deep if you're going to win it. So it's big. It's really big. You're kind of at that fun time of year too, where you're checking the net rankings every night. You're seeing the bracketology and everything. I think there's pressure that comes with that, and if you're able to kind of hold court at home and stay on par, that's a big thing, and kind of eases the pressure a bit for you as you get further into the month.
I'd love net rankings a lot more if I didn't have to wait 5 or 6 hours to know if something was going to be quad 1 or quad 2.
Not just 5 or 6 hours. Sometimes it's like 5 or 6 weeks.
Listen, Bruntz, Ravi, you guys almost lost me about, Shane, was that about 5 or 6 years ago? 5 maybe? I went on a quads rant.
Oh, you did.
About how dumb it was. And I was like, I'm not going to allow myself to get that worked up again.
Yeah. Well, there's got to be some kind of like premium net thing, right? Like you can pay some money and get those rankings
real time
as they happen. Yeah.
That's why I'm more of a Ken Palm guy myself.
Well, it's like you go to bed or you close your eyes and it's a quad 1 win, and you blink a couple of times or wake up in the middle of the night. You're like, damn it. It's a quad 2. That's stupid.
Because somebody in the West Coast Conference lost at home. Bruntz, we appreciate the time as always. DB saved me from asking a question that was probably going to sound too mean to the person involved, not to you. So I'll save the Braxton Mia slander for when you're off the air.
Hey, would you knock it off?
Appreciate the time as always, Bruntz. We'll talk to you later.
Yep, we'll see you.
Thanks, Bruntz.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
Leave me alone.
I will not.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Make sure you get to warhorsecasino.com to get a full list of promotions, house rules, and details, or just go check out the Warhorse casinos either in Lincoln or in Omaha.
What do you know about house rules? You got any rules in your house?
So many rules in my house.
Dude, I know one thing.
What's that?
If you put another picture of your cat on social media, we're going to have some problems.
What's that? My cat's cool.
I probably, like if you said, man, DB, you know what? I'd bet on the fact you need to get over yourself.
Who, me?
I'd say, okay, maybe I do. But do you know I have like some weird principled thoughts?
Sure.
I'm so anti-cat.
Seemingly arbitrary.
I'm so anti-cat. It's incredible.
So this is the first cat I've ever had.
I don't know what it is.
And I love him. He's great.
That can't be true.
I never had any desire to have a cat.
That can't be true.
No, I love my cat. His name's Potato.
You told me that, and I was like, this relationship isn't going to work.
Why Potato?
I don't know.
No, wasn't it the mannerisms like
he would like kind of just loaf and he
yeah,
kind of just looked like a potato sitting on the ground.
He is a little chunk ball.
Yes.
Cats can be okay.
I'm like, the dude's covering the whole ottoman. He was. Like, how big is that thing?
I was pretty big size. That's pretty.
And you let him chill on your shoulder like a parrot or something.
Yeah, he loves riding around on my shoulder.
Wow, the thing's got to be 25 pounds.
No, he's like 15 maybe. He's very fluffy, so he looks bigger than he is.
He looks like a fatty boom balloon.
Oh, he's a little chunky. Don't get me wrong, but he's very fluffy, so it's even more exaggerated. Yeah, he just likes to chill on my shoulder.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Walk around. Listen,
let's
you don't have to follow me.
Man,
you know what's funny? So I only really put him on my Snap. So like I don't put him on like my main socials. I put him on Twitter or Instagram. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like just like the friends place, you know?
No, I'm with
so
you.
like that's on you.
Okay.
That's more like not my personal life, but kind of like my around the house stuff.
I feel you.
You know what I mean?
Like I said, you could bet on the fact it's probably a me thing. I'll eat that.
I had never wanted a cat. Natasha wanted one, and I was like, her friend had one that they were, getting rid of, and I was like, all right.
I said this before, and people accuse me of being shallow.
Yeah.
If I didn't know you and, in my former life and you had a cat,
yeah,
it's a deal breaker. Like I would have to fall in love with you on accident. I mean, way accident.
But you love the dogs.
It's an absolute deal breaker.
Does it help that it wasn't my choice?
It just means you have probably a bigger heart than I think you do. It doesn't. No,
I'm like the Grinch. It grew 3 sizes.
Well, that'd just be normal for him because it was 3. You're just playing catch up at that point.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's an absolute deal breaker.
That's so bizarre to me. For somebody you don't live with, that's really odd.
Yeah, it's just one of those things.
Like I get it if you're like, hey,
I put it up there with, and there's some. Believe me, I got some shallow in me. I'm talking like. Red nail polish. Like I got some shallow in me.
Don't worry, no red nail polish.
But that is just.
It's funny to me because it's not like we were talking about. Hey, DB, do you want to be roommates? Anything like that.
Like I would take you leaving clothes on the floor or, toothpaste in the sink.
But like, what if it's a mild-mannered cat?
I don't live with you, right? So what does it matter?
What if
I'm just talking about how firm my conviction is.
What if everything's
anti-cat world?
What if everything's super tidy, super clean?
Nah, man, little dudes.
Like just the nicest cat ever. Like when you come into the house, it just comes up and meets you. I mean,
did you have a traumatic experience with a cat? Like what happened?
Yeah.
What happened?
So there was this little speckle, and I apologize if the neighbors still listen to the show. They're considerably, they had daughters and stuff, so they might. But we had neighbors, and they had this little cat. It was orange, black, and white, but it had a white tummy.
Okay.
And I was younger, and the little dude would constantly pee on our back door screen.
Okay.
Incessantly.
Yeah.
And it drove my mom crazy.
Sure.
And it was just like a little weird cat.
Yeah.
Does your cat come to you when, do you call it, hey, potato, and it just like comes over?
Just
No, I don't believe
kind of
that
waddles
one,
on
dude.
over.
I don't believe
He does.
that. Without sitting down, without assuming a position that they can see.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, potato. You could be in the kitchen, and potato's gonna come chill.
Yeah.
I gotta see that,
dude. Because
put that on video.
I will. I'll get a picture of, or I'll get a video of it, because
Have you ever been into a house with cat pee?
Oh, cat pee smells terrible. That's
Yeah.
why you gotta have your cat well trained. Our cat's never had an accident. You got 2 litter boxes, one upstairs, one downstairs. We got him covered. He's good to go.
It's like auto DQ. It trumps.
If you
It
came in-
doesn't probably trump body odor, but it trumps race. It trumps. It's up there.
So you're okay.
Good morning again.
So you're gonna ride with like a KKK member with no cat versus
she's not gonna like me to begin with.
Versus a brother with a cat. Like
she's not looking twice at me, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm just saying, like, there's certain, like cats way up there the way of things I would not overlook.
Yeah, no, potato will come if he's called.
Oh my gosh, KP has a cat.
See,
he's a dude's dude too. Like that dude cooks meat in the cold.
Yeah,
yeah.
You have to spend money on good litter.
You got to be able to. If we're just hitting all stereotypes, man, you want to be a guy's guy. You got to cook in the cold. I don't smoke out there in the 20 degrees.
I don't cook at all. Where's that put me?
Yeah. Again, looking at you kind of sideways. Looking at you kind of sideways.
Closest thing I come to cooking is I cook up a little DoorDash order.
You don't have like a non-negotiable?
I'm sure I do.
Mine, I get like I said, I'm petty. I know I'm off the top of my head.
I don't have it off.
And I'm not going to ask you to like change. I just would.
You just won't even start.
Yeah,
you're just moving right on.
Next.
Yeah, but see, we don't live together, and we're not trying to date. So what do you care if I have a cat?
So who would you have first, the dogs or the cats?
Dogs. I've had dogs.
Did you know that the dogs were cool with cats?
One of them I did.
I'm on Pet Finder every day, and that's always like a benchmark, a hurdle.
So it's easier, I think, to find dogs that are good with cats than it is to find cats that are good with dogs. Like some cats just don't do well with dogs. I get that some dogs are cat aggressive, but I knew Natasha had a cat before, so I knew Shadow was good. Rocky kind of just does whatever, so he's cool.
Potato, Rocky, Doug.
Well, we had Tally. Tally was the GOAT. That was my OG. And I figured Tally would just figure it out because she kind of just, she was on the streets for a while, so she kind of just figured stuff out,
Oh Lord.
She was.
Gotta watch those females on the street.
She was
What?
She was on the streets for a while, so she kind of just figured stuff out. So, but no, they were all cool. And Doug loves Potato. They like play fight. It's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, I'll be out on that.
I got a picture of them that looks like Potato and Doug are like in the Lion King. They're like jumping up at each other. It's kind of funny, actually.
I don't know why I just wasted 8 minutes of our bet on it segment over a cat, but
that's okay.
I'm just wanting you to bet on the fact that I think you're weird.
I could bet on the fact that me having a cat is not going to affect your life at all.
KP says about his cat that it runs off coyotes. So, I mean, that's got to be a heck of a cat.
What?
Yeah. Have you ever seen that? You should watch these videos on like TikTok.
What?
No, seriously. Sometimes these house cats will run off enormously large wild animals. Like I've seen a black bear get run off by a house cat. It's wild.
And when I was young, who's the little girl that played in Firestarter, Shane?
I just saw her.
She's popular.
Yeah, I just saw her the other day.
Not the Redux.
1984.
Yes. What was that little girl's name? She's famous.
Drew Barrymore.
Yes. So she played in a movie. Was it Cat Eye or something with a little gremlin that would like hop on her bed at night and the cat defended her? I'm young.
I'm looking. I'm trying.
I think it was Cat Eye or something like that.
Sounds like a Stephen King movie.
And the cat was just
Cat's
like,
eye. Cat's
yes,
eye.
and the cat would be like, "Ah." And I'm young. I'm like, ugh. And I got a little pea cat next door. I come by it honestly.
See,
but if you want your winner,
yeah,
Jackson State.
Jackson State
At Sam Houston. It crossed the 0.
Oh,
I'm telling you, all in on Jackson State.
there you go. Jackson State is the winner
Cross
for
the 0,
the
baby.
day. Bet on it. Brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and brought to you by our friends over at Midland's Family Urgent Care. It's, I know it doesn't feel like summer's around the corner, but it's going to creep up on you faster than you know it. And if you want to lose a little weight before you start doing your summer activities, give Midland's Family Urgent Care a call. They can help you out with FDA-approved medications and compounded medications such as tirzepatide and semaglutide. I've lost over 30 pounds myself with Midland's Family Urgent Care. It's 402-810-9494. Give them a call to set up a consultation and see if it's a good fit for you. DB.
Cats are way more work, by the way.
No, they're really not. Have you ever had a cat?
Yeah.
I don't think
lots.
Dude, cats are so I
can't believe you've never Shane, you had to have seen that movie. They played the little Every Breath You Take song in it. It's just weird that I've
only had one cat and I've had 6 different dogs. So I know more about dogs than cats for sure.
Not good dogs.
But cats, at least my cat, way easier to potty train and way less work on a daily basis.
Yeah, but I mean you're cleaning the cat litter box. I mean, there's just more to it.
That's easier than
Is the dude with the rotating cat litter box on your algorithm?
Oh yeah, you can get like automatic cat litter boxes. It's incredible.
Yeah,
we haven't bought one yet, but
I've seen that guy. I'm like, can you put kids in there?
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't have to worry about it, but that'd have been cool about.
It's like
it's huge and it rotates.
It's like using like dog kennels to keep your kids in. You're not supposed to do that either. I don't know if you know that. I'm gonna move on so you don't get anybody called on you.
The number's on the fridge.
I have a little game I want to play.
Hey, I shouldn't even tell this story.
Go ahead.
You're
not gonna get arrested, are you?
I should have. I traumatized Zoe yesterday.
Uh-oh.
I told this little girl don't do anything on the couch.
Okay.
Like, I mean, she can obviously sit and watch TV and stuff, but she has an affinity to draw and paint, and she just does a lot of little kid things. This little girl decided to sharpen her pencils on the couch. I mean, leaned over the ottoman, just living her best life, watching her iPad sharpening her pencils.
Okay.
The shavings work their way into the couch.
Oh, no.
So it looked like a giant smudge thing.
Yep.
You know how people used to think stuff wiped off?
Mm-hmm.
Man, for like 15 seconds, I think I blacked out. She looked dead at me. Didn't say one word. Took her little fast walking self, got the little mini stool, tore off a couple of paper towels, and got the carpet cleaning thing under the. No idea what to probably do with it, but the funniest thing ever, she didn't say one word.
She's like, I messed up.
I was like, give it here. I didn't say it like that, but I was thinking it. And she's like, where do you want me to put the shavings? In the goddamn trash.
What do you think, Zoe? What are we doing?
Man. Anyway, go ahead. Ask me the question.
You want to play a little game?
Not if it's. Am I going to have to fix budgets?
No.
And do cap space?
We're not doing cap space right now. These are just general statements that I want you to tell me if they're true or if I'm Delulu.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going with Delulu right off the
Probably.
If this week is any indication,
yeah, it's not great.
Going with Delulu.
Okay, number one. I don't know. I'm sure you heard this. Dak Prescott says he thinks the Dallas Cowboys are close to winning a Super Bowl.
Delulu.
That man is Delulu, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that one's easy. They're not close.
You're the last. Arguably going to be the last team in your division.
Depends on what the Giants do at quarterback, but the roster's better. The Giants' roster is better if they can figure out anything at quarterback. And then Washington is definitely ahead of them after this year. Obviously, Philadelphia is as well. So, yeah, I think that's right.
I mean, you gotta get to second in your division
before you even having a conversation.
Yeah.
At best, they are third. At best. Yeah. So they're in a bad spot. Number two. Okay. Whew.
Yep, Delulu.
At his introductory press conference, Anthony Davis with the Mavs said he understands the loss of Luka to the city of Dallas because that's what he meant to the Lakers too. Is that true, or is he Delulu?
Delulu.
Right?
Correct.
Did anybody in the Lakers mourning the loss of Anthony Davis?
Nope.
especially with Luka Doncic coming in.
Maybe his real estate agent that hadn't quite closed on that $25 million mansion.
Well,
they'll get that deal done.
Apparently, Luka. Maybe you could just sell it to Luka, who just bought a 15. They do a little swap.
Yeah,
with
Luka's winning, though. I mean, Dallas traffic sucks, but I'll save the $10 million and get Luka's place.
I'm just saying, maybe just switch properties there.
I've eaten in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, too.
Yeah.
I may take that over.
Over L.A.?
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time in L.A.?
I've been there 3 times.
Okay.
Four.
Yeah.
And remember, I'm poor, so I didn't spend a lot.
Sure.
I did get sushi at Chavez Ravine, though.
L.A. is it? You get sushi at a ball game?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if you're going to pay $14 for a Dodger dog.
I'm not saying you got a Dodger dog, but like, I got to imagine ballpark sushi is only slightly above gas station.
And it was
sushi.
like 07, so I was kind of bougie because I had, I was pretty papered up back then. It's pre-giving away half. Anyway.
Hello, we want prenup. We want prenup. Yeah. Tell them what you need to have.
By the way, are you watching Hot? Never mind. Go.
So when she leave your ass, she going to leave with half.
Totally delusional.
18 years.
AD.
18 years.
AD won't be one of the top 15 greatest Lakers of all time.
Probably not. Okay, so let's stick with that situation.
Okay.
True or Delulu? The Lakers are now legit title contenders with Luka and LeBron.
One more time.
True or Delulu? The Lakers are legit title contenders with Luka and LeBron.
True. Legit.
100%.
Yeah, top 4 in the West.
I agree.
Top 4
I
in the
think
West.
that is a special, because you just got to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then if you got LeBron and Luka, nobody wants to see that.
I think
not a soul wants to play you.
I think they're top 4 in the West.
The West is a little more open than people thought.
I
mean, it is. Now, OKC's really good.
They're fantastic.
But you do kind of have the advantage of experience, right? Luka's been to a finals. Obviously, LeBron's been there. It's pretty new for Oklahoma City still. Doesn't always take a couple tries, but it tends to, right? So that's the only real red flag with Oklahoma City, although they are going to get Chet Holmgren back at some point, which should be terrifying to the rest of the league. But outside of Oklahoma City, is there anybody in the West that scares you?
No.
Right?
Although second half, Jamal Murray is probably going to emerge here pretty soon. He takes half the season off every year, and then at some point he decides he's going to get serious about playing.
I mean, maybe. If that emerges, then he's scary because of Jokic too. But I think the West is gettable.
So my man AK is calling me Delulu.
Okay, on the
picking the Dallas-Fort Worth area for food over LA. I would like to quantify.
Okay,
AK. It's specific to my tastes. I get.
So you're a meat guy.
Yes.
So the meat may be better in Texas than it is in LA.
And there's more opportunities. Now I do like sushi.
I would say if you went heavy seafood in LA, you might be in good shape.
So okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Best scallops I ever had.
You might be
right
real
off
good
Pacific
shape.
Coast Highway.
Yep.
And in LA with my buddy the chef. But in totality, what my palate.
Sure. No, I get that.
I can still get barbecue. I can still get a good steak. That aren't changed. Like I just, there's reasons for that. I get it on the surface, AK, why you think I'm Delulu.
No, that makes sense. But if you're like, again, this is a little, like Omaha's a really good food city. If you're a steak or beef person, you're better off in Omaha than you are in some other famous food cities, right? Like that's just the nature of your palate. That makes sense to me. I got you. No,
He said, what the?
I got you. No, that's not crazy.
My bad, AK.
Okay. This one just came down, so I didn't have it written down.
Okay.
But apparently Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars are in talks with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want two sides of the scenario, okay, on True or Delulu, right?
Yeah.
We'll start with the side that you don't have a vested interest in. Granted, regarding the conversation we had earlier with paying guys that maybe aren't that guy, this is the right move for Jacksonville to move on from Trevor Lawrence. True or Delulu?
True.
I agree.
True.
Yeah.
I think for Jacksonville, it makes sense to move off of
that money.
Yes.
100%.
Because the rest of that roster, now, again, they're going to have to do what everybody else has got to do and go get a quarterback.
Figure it out, yeah.
But that roster is
Pretty good and getting better.
Especially if you go off the model that you gave about building
through the D-line?
No, a roster in general.
Oh,
what you could spend that
sure.
money
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree. The second part of that equation, Trevor Lawrence makes the Steelers a Super Bowl contender. True or Delulu? This one's harder, I think.
Closer to Delulu than true, but it's not
crazy.
Not crazy.
It depends on which version of Trevor Lawrence you get.
Yeah, and what are you going to get from Pickens? Because they're going to move off from a couple of key pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't re-sign and you could probably go get another wide receiver. You maybe wouldn't have to draft Jackson Dart. There's a lot in there.
Yeah, not having to draft Jackson Dart would be
and use it on something else.
A huge blessing. Be able to use something else at 21. So it depends on if you're getting 2022 Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, when we thought he was on, that's what got him the deal.
Where he was on the come up. He's 4,000 yards, 66% completion, 28 touchdowns, 8 picks. Takes Jacksonville of all franchises to not only to the playoffs but to a playoff win. Was a top 10 MVP candidate, or are you getting the guy we saw the last 2 years?
It's hard for me to value the change in scenery.
Especially coming from a dysfunctional franchise.
And the change in organizational structure, because I still think he's young and impressionable enough. He's not Rodgers, right? He's not dead set on his way.
He's not 40.
I think he's still malleable.
And he's been through 4 head coaches, 4 offensive coordinators.
I would actually have to cheer for Trevor Lawrence, which would be another boo-hoo moment.
That's true or Delulu. Maybe we will revisit that again at some point. I like that game. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.